Good afternoon and welcome to RS Media live commentary of the game between Wolverhampton Wanderers and Newcastle United. I'm joined today by Matt and Mark. They're both going to be doing the commentary today while I take an undeserved rest. But thank you very much for you two to take control of this. Hope you're both okay.
I'm very well, thank you. And you?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Good.
How are you, Mark?
Yeah, excellent.
Good. And I'm going to leave it over to you guys now.
Thank you very much, Ryan. So it's Wolves against Newcastle in the Premier League. It's both sides' sixth game of the season. Wolves start the day in 10th place, while Newcastle start the day in 14th place. 7 of the last 10 meetings in the Premier League have been draws, and the last 3 have all been by a 1-1 scoreline. How will today fare as Wolves face Newcastle United? As Ryan said, Mark Stillman is alongside me. Good afternoon, Mark. How are you?
All good. Afternoon, Matt. Hope you're well.
I'm very well, thank you. Looking ahead to this game, Wolves, as we know, don't have the luxury of European football this year. And whilst it is a luxury to some degree, of course, it does take its hold on a small squad like it is with congestion and things like that. So this season in particular, they don't have that, as I rightly said. How do you think they can manage this season compared to what they had to manage last season, where they played an astonishing amount of games?
Yeah, well, I mean, last season lasted 383 days for them in the end, and they played 59. I think I looked at most they can play this season. It's just 45. That's a huge difference. Obviously, it's not as much travelling going around Europe every other week, every other Thursday night. But I think they've got the squad to handle it as well. I think they've said in the week that they want to build from a foundation. They keep a very solid lineup as well. They usually keep a familiar back three, and it's something to build on. So I think without the added pressure, added games of European football, they can benefit from it just staying in their own country for a little while. And obviously they're already out of the League Cup as well. So until January, they haven't really got any other distractions. So full on concentrating on the Premier League and building on their recent fine form.
Absolutely. They don't have to think about potentially so-called wrapping players in cotton wool and making sure that they're fitter and up to scratch will be quicker than what they'd expect. Their opponents today are Newcastle United, very, very solid side under Steve Bruce. We've seen on the tactics side of things, they've gone to a 4 at the back as opposed to the sort of 5 and the 3 that they played last year. Today, they've gone with a 3-5-2, sort of matching Wolves' 3 at the back. So they've gone back to what they were used to under Steve Bruce. What have you made of Newcastle this season? Unbeaten away, but at home they've had 1 win and 2 losses. How have you assessed their season so far?
I think we already know with Steve Bruce in charge, they're going to try and make themselves hard to beat. But I think what they desperately need is more goals, which I think we'll probably move on to soon. Obviously, they finished 13th last year, 14th at the moment, 13th the year before. And if there were fans in the stadium, it's not too much to get off the edge of your seat for. So I think that's something they desperately need to improve upon, not be reliant on one player. I mean, they've had 10 different goal scorers this season, but that's helped as well from the League Cup. They had a big win over Morecambe, for example. But yeah, we say they have been solid defensively, but they've been known to crumble as well. Obviously, they lost 3-0 at home to Brighton and 4-1 at home to Manchester United. Okay, they conceded a few late on when they were chasing the game. It gave it a bit of a lopsided scoreline. I think they've gone back to the 3, made 4 changes today as well, just to get back to winning ways and pull themselves away. Because I mean, I think if Wolves win today, they go within 3 points of top because of how congested it is. And obviously, if Newcastle win today, they'll go within 3 points top, and with the Wolves, it'll be even better.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's the most competitive Premier League season I can remember for a good number of seasons. And both sides have got 2 informed strikers in Raul Jimenez and Callum Wilson. Jimenez has got 3 goals this season. Wilson's got 4. Is it right to point out that they're both the key players in both sides when they go forward today?
Oh, without doubt. I mean, he's only scored 5 this season, 3 of them from Jimenez, and in a way, they're perhaps too reliant on him. I think Daniel Podence hasn't scored in 7 games, and I think they need some of the other players to chip in a little bit more up alongside him. Neto scored the win against Fulham recently, his first goal at Molineux. And for the Newcastle side of things, again, Callum Wilson came in, a bit of pressure on him. Obviously, you know what Newcastle fans think of their strikers, and had some legendary ones in the past, legendary number 9s, although he isn't wearing the number 9, but he's got the pressure of the 20 million signing, and he's already scored 4 in, 6 games for Newcastle, whereas they've had Joe Linton, who I think in like 40, has netted 2. So it's something which they really need to improve upon. Newcastle last season scored the fewest goals they've scored for 12, 13 years in the Premier League. So that's what they need to improve on, both teams, I think. And as we know in previous meetings between them, it's going to be tight, and I think it will be again today.
Well, this is an interesting statistic to say. You rightly pointed out Joe Linton, of course, is Newcastle's record signing. He scored 6 goals in 52 appearances in all competitions. And Callum Wilson has already got 4 in the league, and has obviously as well added to that factor. Hasn't actually scored in the League Cup. So all his goals have come in the Premier League. So just goes to show what a good striker can do to a team. We've seen with Wolves that they've been very, very hard to play against over the last few years. Premier League sides have really struggled against them. What would you say is their driving force in this 3-5-2 that they can play off, 3-4-3 that has been so successful over the last few years under Nuno Espirito Santo? Would you say it's the wing backs, or would you say it's the pace that they have on the break alongside Jimenez?
You can look from the very back, to be honest, because Nuno Espirito Santo said in the week that if you have a foundation, you go from there. If you've got a solid base, you know that you're not likely to concede goals. I know they imploded a little bit at West Ham, but aside from that, they kept 2 clean sheets in their last 2 games, 3 in the league this season. They keep a very steady back line. You've got the likes of Connor Cody, very rarely misses games, alongside Roger Bolly as well. And it's something which they can... Willie Bolly, apologise. But it's something which, really, from the back, if you've just got that solid base, then you're not going to concede lots of goals. And you know that you've got a lethal striker in Jimenez, who you're known to player of the year for the last 2 years. He can always nick one for you on the break. But as I said, they don't want to be too reliant on him. And I know they lost Doherty in the summer as well, which is a big miss for them. But they've had players who've come in and done an apt job. And he does like to stick with the 3 at the back, and it's obviously a formation which works well for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, it's a system that is so familiar to Premier League fans and Wolves fans. As you can see on your screen, that the Newcastle players are about to head onto the pitch. They've got chains in the higher end of Molineux, whilst the hosts will come out on the usual way, which is coming out through the tunnel. Wolves, of course, as we know, have a strong home record. They have a home record so far of 1 win and 1 loss, albeit that loss came to Manchester City, and they did win their last home game, which was a 1-0 win over Fulham. Last year, of course, they had the 8th best record in the league, whilst Newcastle away from home managed to take 18 points and won just 5 on the road, which included a draw here back in February, which saw Miguel Almiron score one of his rare goals in the Premier League. Just quickly, before we do read out the teams, Mark, Newcastle, as we know, they've got a player in Alan St-Maximin who is such a tricky player to play against. He's playing down the middle today, usually different position for him. How do you think he'll fare in the 2 up front?
Well, even he said yesterday he's motivated by assists, not goals. So I think he'll be willing to just help out Callum Wilson as much as he can. Be sort of an unselfish player, help ally for him, because Wilson's 4 goals this season, 2 from the penalty spot and 2 tap-ins, which shows he knows to be in the right place at the right time. But he's a good, strong, direct player. Alan St-Maximin is tricky on the ball. Recently signed a new contract as well, so he's committed to the cause. Seems like he's really sort of adapted well to life up in Newcastle, and yeah, it's going to be different from his usual role, but I think it'll be a handy foil for Wilson up front, give the Wolves defence something to think about.
Well, let's read through the two starting lineups. Starting with Wolves, it's Rui Patricio in goal. The back three remains the same as Monday against Leeds United. Willy Bolly, Connor Cody and Max Kilman, who celebrated signing a new 5-year deal this week. The four in midfield include Nelson Semedo, Leander Den Donker, Ruben Neves, who's in place of João Moutinho, and Roman Saiz is at left wing back, continuing there despite Marchal being on the bench. And then there's the three up front of Daniel Podence, Raul Jimenez, and Pedro Neto, who scored in their last win against Fulham. With the substitutes John Ruddy, Kiana Hover, Ryan I, Nouri, Marchal, João Moutinho, Adama Traore, and the club's record signing Fabio Silva. Newcastle line up in a 3-5-2, different to what they have been playing this season. It's Carl Darlow in goal. Fabian Schär comes in place of Emil Kraft at defence. He's alongside Jamal Lascelles and Federico Fernandez, who partner him in a three at the back. They go with five in midfield. Jacob Murphy is at right wing back as he replaces Joel Linton. Ryan Fraser comes in place of John Joe Shelby. Jeff Hendrick. Miguel Almiron comes in place of Isaac Hayden. And Jamal Lewis completes the five. Callum Wilson and Alan St. Maximan are the two up front, with the substitutes Mark Gillespie, Emil Kraft, Javi Manquillo, Isaac Hayden, Sean Longstaff back on the bench after missing with tonsillitis, Andy Carroll and Joel Linton. So here's Callum Wilson, as we know, a man who actually joined Newcastle based off the fact that his son liked the film Goal, which I will admit is a fantastic film, one that I will never ever get tired of watching. Have you watched it, Mark?
I've seen Goal 2, I think, from memory. Saw that in the cinema. But yeah, great
you need
film.
To watch Goal 1 on the basis of what I've said, trust me. It's a very, very good film.
You saw
We're
it,
underway here as Wolves kick us off, looking to push on up the table and claim a second home win of the season and make it 3 wins in a row. They've had 2 1-0 victories against Fulham and Leeds, respectively. 2 sides promoted from the Championship, and they're hoping that the Newcastle will be their 3rd victim in a row. Here is Connor Cody to Max Kilman, the young defender who broke into the first team around about last year. First touch for Newcastle is one sent away by Fernandez and had a play for a Wolverhampton Wanderers throw-in.
Yeah, he said they're starting with a back 3, but early on it was almost a very narrow back 5, always on one side of the pitch. Obviously, don't want to make any sort of inroads very early on, but he has been known to almost line up with a flat back 5 in some games, Steve Bruce. But the game goes on, I'm sure they'll be more expansive. They are now.
Here is Jacob Murphy making his first start under Steve Bruce in the Premier League. There's a lovely ball through to Alan St. Maximan. He's looking to try and find his next pass, trying to get around the midfielder Den Donker, the Belgian, but he does well to stand up. St. Maximan, you would have thought Wolves defensively will be keeping a very close eye on the Newcastle number 10. Here is Semedo, who played over 100 times for Barcelona before he was forced out of the club after they signed Serginho Dest from Ajax under Ronald Koeman. Here is Kilman, bringing it inside Newcastle's half. And then it's intercepted well there by the defender, Fabian Schär. And it's a free kick as Roman Saiz commits a foul there just inside Newcastle's half.
Yeah, Saiz has been asked to push on more recently. Obviously, he was one of the familiar back 3 last year. But now Kilman's coming in, got man of the match on Monday, performed so well. Saiz more on a wing-back role. He had a goal and disallowed on Monday, a cracking strike against Leeds United. But he's been another man. He's come up through the Championship, and then he's really excelled, and is part of the reason why Wolves have been in the top 10 since they've been back in the Premier League.
Well, he's played as a CDM and as a centre-back under Nuno Espirito Santo, but has been deployed as a left wing-back for the last 2 games. As, of course, they've had to deal with the injury to Johnny Otto, who's out with a long-term injury and so forth. And it's a ball, the pass that was intended for Jacob Murphy from Fabian Schär has just hit a water bottle, which is so often what you don't see. It just bobbled up and went through to Murphy. He's complaining about an outside interference. That's one of the more comical moments that you'll going to see, not just in this game, but of the entire season. I think I've never seen that before.
No beach ball incident at the Stadium of Light, wasn't it, with Darren Bent? But yeah, that's me. I just noticed you are slightly behind me, so I was there chuckling away, realising that you'd caught up on it. But yeah, it was how it's ended up there. I presume some of the players were doing a warm-up and they've just forgotten to pick it up afterwards.
Well, I mean, who knows how that ball was there, but either way, it will continue, and Lee Mason has dealt with the problem. Here is Semedo being put through. Defending it is Jamal Lewis. He puts the ball into the back post, Semedo. Headed away there by Murphy. Wolves still have the ball, though. Here is Saiz. Scored against Sheffield United in their opening game. That 2-0 win at Bramall Lane. Cody. Now it's Dendoncker spraying the ball out to the right. Picks up Semedo. Takes under control very, very well. Got 3 Newcastle players in and around him as they try to stop him from getting around him. And now they have it at the back with Bolly. So Wolves keeping possession in the early stages of this game. Cody playing the ball forward. Semedo's going to get there again. Nice build-up play. This just a little bit beyond Dendoncker, and Jamal Lewis will send that into the Wolves half. Looking for St. Maximan, but he was never, ever going to get up and compete with Connor Cody there.
They cut that shape well, Newcastle, in these early stages. See Maximan and Almiron helping out at the back as well, which is what they need to keep this Wolves team at bay.
The ball by the number 7, Neto. Here is Jimenez. Such a real nuisance to all defenders. Gives that to Saiz. He puts the ball in first time. Headed away by Fernandez. St. Maximan. Ball short. Wolves pick it up again. Here is Pedro Neto. Who netted, of course, in their 1-0 win against Fulham in their last home game. Here is Semedo. Cadets. On the edge of the box. Looks to shoot. Shoots low. Darlow makes a good save. First time either goalkeeper has been tested in this game. It was a very good save by Carl Darlow down at his near post on his left-hand side. And you can't allow Daniel Podence any room to shoot because he can cause some problems.
Yeah, they'll be glad that Darlow managed to, I think, pass a fitness test to get ready for this one. He was a doubt for the game against, for this game, having been collided into from Marcus Rashford in the defeat over Manchester United. And with Dubravka already out for the time being, the last thing they would have wanted to do is throw in another one, a goalkeeper. But yeah, regulation save, one you'd expect him to make, but see, making the more impressive start of the two. They've looked more positive, more on the front foot than Newcastle. They're playing like the sort of stereotypical away side. It is almost a back line of 5, just leaving Wilson up top on his own, and then Manquillo's Maximan come back and help the midfield. So maybe they'll come out of their shell a little bit more, but at the moment they're happy for to just play it around and try and come at them a little bit.
Here is Connor Cody to Willy Bolly, who was one of the players who was part of their promotion winning campaign for the Championship nearly 2.5 years ago. Semedo up against Jamal Lewis. It's Semedo has the better of the Northern Irish defender. Bolly up high to Cody, to Kilman, sorry. Newcastle happy to let Wolves build and have the ball inside 6.5 minutes. Bolly to Neto. Semedo looking for Jimenez. Getting up there was Jamal Lascelles. Good header there. And then putting it out for a throw-in was Jamal Lewis. But it's all gone down the Newcastle number 15 side so far. And just another replay on this Carl Darlow save.
Yeah, see, Lascelles almost invited him to shoot, really, so turned his back on it, and it perhaps made it easier for Darlow, who would have known that if he was going to go for goal, he was going to try and get it inside that near post. And there's a statistic comes out that Newcastle have now faced the most shots on target this season, so perhaps they need to be closing down a little bit more. But if they're going to restrict Wolves and efforts and distance, I think they'll be pretty happy with that.
Dice on the board. I'd love to know what these possession stats are within the first 7.5 minutes. I don't even know if Newcastle have really touched the ball, if I'm being honest.
No, about 90-10 would be my guess.
I think I'd be very lucky if it was 10%, but I guess we'll never ever know. Here's Semedo. Neto to Ruben Neves. We know all about his quality. Tries to play it through to Semedo. Gets a little bit fortunate as it bounces off Almiron, but he gets a corner as his cross was charged down there by Jamal Lewis. But Wolves looking very bright and looking encouraging as they look to try and get the lead in this game between these two.
Yeah, Semedo picking up the ball on the right-hand side, started the last three. Obviously, as I said, they lost Doherty in pre-season going to Tottenham. So big boots to fill, but win an early corner for Wolves.
Neto's going to take it. They go with this train that was seen in the World Cup. Neto takes it. It's delivered in far too easy for Carl Darlow. Under no challenge from any Wolves player, and he's able to gather that easily. And he had a lot of time to think about that as well, Carl Darlow. And he'll be hoping that every delivery is like that. 28% the possession in the first half so far. I'm very surprised it's even that. A little bit short for Hendrick, but Wolves now nick it back. Here's Podence. He's got Neto who can make the run. Podence shoots. Over the bar it goes. Again, he was under no real pressure from any black or white shirt. And the shot from distance was around 20, 25 yards out. And in the end, it's gone well over Carl Darlow's crossbar. But he so far has been heavily involved in Wolves' attacking play so far.
Yeah, cheaply given away from Newcastle. So they won it back easily from the corner, but didn't do anything with it. Ironically, as they flash up with the possession stats, so they barely had any time on the ball, and they were just so poor retaining it. Then it was Hendrick who was robbed, and Podence, so he turned 25 on Wednesday. He's keen to get a belated birthday goal, yet to score this season, but he's the man who's looked more threatening so far. I haven't seen much of Jimenez in these early stages. At the moment, for Wolves, it's all been by Podence.
Well, he has just scored one goal since he arrived from Olympiacos, Daniel Podence, one of the many Portuguese players that are in this Wolves squad. Newcastle have a bit of possession here. The ball into St. Maximin was poorly controlled by the Newcastle number 10, who has got cult hero status after just over a year as a Newcastle player. And there's a Wolves player down. It's looking like it's
Dendoncker,
who's on the ground. But he gets back up. So Wolves not going to kick the ball out of play. Here is Neves. Loves to ping the ball out to the flanks, doesn't he? And he picks out Semedo here. He runs onto it. They're going to take on Lewis. Goes inside. It's Jimenez. He was coming onto it, but rather wildly swung at it and was leaning back, and it's gone well wide of the goal. But there is so much space between Newcastle's back line and where their midfield occupy on the pitch, which Wolves are exposing at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, collector's item there for Jimenez, and we see him connect with the ball far better than that. Let's go against Sheffield United as an example, but Semedo, again, far too much room on that side. Lewis not really doing enough to close in dime. It's Wolves making all the early running, 3 attempts at goal in the first 10 minutes or so, and they'll be hoping for more because Newcastle have not got into this game whatsoever. They obviously struggled in the closing stages against Manchester United, and it feels like the momentum has carried on into this game. I don't think Steve Bruce will be too impressed with the start his side have made.
Well, against Tottenham in their last away game, which they somehow managed to get a point from, they were second best for the majority of that game. And then, of course, they got a penalty when the former Wolves defender Matt Doherty handled controversially from a free kick inside the last few seconds of the game. And so Callum Wilson tucked one in from the penalty spot, but they got a draw there. So it does have that same feeling of them being second best and not quite waking up yet. And almost with the clocks going back today by 1 hour, it does feel like Newcastle's players needed that extra 1 hour in bed, it does seem. Here is Neves. Nice ball to Dendoncker. Semedo, seen a lot of the ball inside the opening 12 minutes. Under pressure from St. Maximin, who's back doing his defensive duties. Getting against Lewis. Was Semedo trying to get around him? But Jamal Lewis stands up and tackles the ball out of play for a throw-in.
Yeah, they're certainly trying to play the ball a lot more down this right-hand side, trying to get Semedo in play more down the right, which is giving Lewis a few things to think about early on. But yeah, Wolves trying to spread the play as often as possible.
Semedo takes the throw and goes short to Jimenez, holding up against Hendrick. Lovely back heel that goes on through to a Wolves player. Here's Neto, pokes it through to Jimenez, who gets the shot away and is going to go for a goal kick. He would have had to have done a lot to put that in the back of the net. There was 2 Newcastle players surrounding him, and he rather wildly, with his left foot, tried to beat Carl Darlow, but in the end it's gone well wide of the goal. But again, Wolves showing their attacking qualities there.
Attacking qualities, defensive frailty. I think Newcastle had around 7 men around the ball then. How they got it out of a tight spot in the corner, a little bit of showboating involved as well. A nice back heel at the start of it. And if anything, Jimenez should have done better. But he was surrounded by black and white shirts. How on earth he's managed to get any shot away at all? It's something of a miracle. That's 4 efforts already for Wolves in these early stages, and Newcastle really on the back foot.
They was having to chase down that pass, but he manages to have enough legs to get on that and stop Jimenez from getting onto it. Cody plays it to Semedo. Trying to get away from Almiron, but he's ran that out of play. Good defending there by Miguel Almiron, the Paraguayan, who was one of the last few signings of Rafael Benitez's reign. Well, Nuno Espirito Santo signed a new 3-year contract back in September. He's taken Wolves from the Championship to the Europa League quarter-finals, where they were beaten by the eventual winners Sevilla in August. Of course, it was a remarkable run in Europe, which saw them start in July of 2019 and finish in August of 2020. No side has ever had a 13-month European campaign. Poor ball there by Neto. Seized upon by Ryan Fraser. Here's Hendrick to Share in the side today in place of Emil Kraft. Now to Fernandez on the ball. This is the first time we've actually seen Newcastle have possession inside Wolves' half inside 15 minutes, but they give it straight back to Saiz. He rolls it to Pedent. He tries to look for the diagonal to Semedo, cut out by St. Maximan. He now gives it to Miguel Almiron. Fraser, poor ball to Almiron, and Wolves can bring it forward. Neto, lovely feet there by Pedent. And was he fouled there? Lee Mason, the referee, says no. Here's Fraser. Not got many options around him. Goes short to Miguel Almiron, and then Newcastle go all the way back with Jamal Lascelles.
It's quite familiar, isn't it, Matt, watching a team in black and white being pretty dominated in a game for the second day round. Newcastle on a little spell of possession there, but really they haven't got into it. Some players like Fraser, I think, it's where their first touches on the ball, and Wilson's just been a peripheral figure. We said how strong the Wolves' defence have been this season. You see when Newcastle in possession again, like they've basically gone into a back 5 themselves, but they've really had nothing to deal with. I don't think Patricio's touched the ball yet, or even been close to touching the ball in its early stages.
You'd be forgiven for thinking if Rui Patricio's feeling a bit cold. It's not going to be certainly the mildest of weathers in Wolverhampton out there today. Here is Saiz, but no one around him pressing him, as Newcastle just quite happy to just sit back and let Wolves come to them. Murphy to Share, clipping it forward. Stepping in there is Pedent, who then puts the ball out of touch for a Newcastle throw-in. 16 minutes gone of this game, and whilst Wolves have had all the chances so far, it is still 0-0, so they've got to be relatively happy, Newcastle, despite Wolves getting through the gaps a little bit, haven't they, Mark?
Well, yeah, Newcastle started the Manchester United game pretty well as well, obviously helped by the early own goal from Luke Shaw, but they're on the attack now anyway.
Lovely ball through to Wilson. He's onside. He's going to get on the end of it. Wilson shoots. Good defending by Max Kilman. It was a beautiful ball played to him. The first time we've seen Newcastle make any sort of inroads toward the Wolves goal, and any shot for that matter as well. But it was really good defending by Kilman. Managed to get on the other side of Callum Wilson and throw himself at the shot to stop it going toward Rui Patricio's goal. But that's what Newcastle have in abundance on the counter-attack. Yeah,
he needed those long 6'4" legs to get in the way there, Kilman. Initially caught tight, but he recovered well and puts it behind for a corner.
Here's Lascelles, couldn't quite get it under control. Saiz now bringing it away. He then looks to go over the top, but it is a poor ball, and he does win a free kick out of it as he was fouled there, and Lee Mason on top of it to make the decision.
Yeah, just a replay of Saiz being wiped out really clearly from the Newcastle skipper, and but yeah, Newcastle came back into the game in the last few minutes after always had those 4 efforts in the first 10. But I think Newcastle might be trying to ask a few more questions. Ball was in behind like they did with Kilman, which really sort of caught him on the blind side. Could be their way forward. And we know what a player Callum Wilson is like. Real fox in the box. He's been there and done it. He's come through the ranks of like Coventry and Bournemouth, and he started so electrically at Newcastle as well. Yet to get into this game too much, but he hasn't had the service. Newcastle have barely had the ball.
Well, they did find the gap that was left by Saiz that did, as you rightly alluded to, catch Max Kilman out and meant he had to go on the blind side of Callum Wilson, but he recovered very, very well to get in front of the shot and make it go out for a corner. Here's Jamal Lewis. Could we see maybe a change in this game? Newcastle get a free kick. Jamal Lewis did very well there as Semedo was the man who was penalised.
Yeah, we said about how tight these games have been in the past. The last 3-1 draws, and was it 7 draws out of the last 10? So, yeah, in terms of scoreline, it's been tight so far, but in terms of possession, it's been more Wolves. But Newcastle is sort of slowly getting into the game.
It has almost got every feel of this being a typical away performance. Of course, Newcastle, as you know, have had a style change this season. They were perceived as being a little bit negative in the league last year under Steve Bruce, but he's very much tried to change things. Of course, it probably hasn't helped with off-field matters when their proposed takeover by the Saudi Crown Prince was rejected by the Premier League, and they still don't actually know what the reason was for that. Whether they will ever find out is anybody's guess. But they get a throw in here with Fabian Schär. He goes to Murphy, who's under pressure, does well to wriggle away from Jimenez, goes through, lets someone go through to Almiron. He gives it to Jamal Lewis. Out now to St. Maximan. First chance we've seen him have the ball at his feet. We all know he's a good dribbler and such an agile player. He gets it to Almiron. He puts the ball into the back post. Saiz heads it away and out for a throw. And it's now Newcastle's turn to have a good spell of attacking play.
Yeah, you're right about the off-the-field issues have been a distraction, but on them as well hasn't helped. They've had players out with lots of niggling injuries. Martin Dubravka, the number one goalkeeper, hasn't played this season. Dwight Gale hasn't featured. DeAndre Yedlin's out injured, and all sorts of them. And it doesn't really help them, but they've started to get back into this one a little bit.
Newcastle have a corner here, their second one of the game, and Ryan Fraser's looking like he's going to go over the... Well, he's going to put the ball on the spot, and Maximan's gone over there as well. So a chance for Fernandes to go forward alongside Jamal Lascelles, whose last goal, incidentally, came in this fixture at St James's Park back in October 2019. Ball in by Fraser, who goes to take the corner. Headed away by Jimenez. Now Almiron picking up the ball. Chance to put it back in. Well blocked, though, by Jimenez there, and it's it's a Newcastle throw right in front of Steve Bruce as well. So Almiron leaves it for Jamal Lewis to take.
Steve Bruce is nearing 1,000 games in charge now, incredibly. 957. A few milestones, just past 50 games in charge, and he turned 60 on New Year's Eve. So all rounded up numbers, and he's had 11 jobs now in England. Reputation a bit up and down with some of those clubs. I know he's been popular places where he's been a little bit longer, but I think Newcastle fans want perhaps more expansive style of football they're used to. Obviously, how much love Kevin Keegan was around those parts, and they've yet to really see it in Newcastle, who just struggled for goals last season. So the lowest they'd scored since 2006-7, I think. So it's something they really need to improve on. But hopefully, with the likes of Wilson in the side, that is a statistic that can improve them.
Fernandes to Jeff Hendrick, who was one of a few summer recruits, signed on a free from Burnley. Lovely ball to Wilson, tried to play it to Almiron, but Almiron just stepped a little bit too far forward and was behind him, and Wolves have a throw. And the possession in the last 10 minutes has changed. We talked about how the first 10 minutes, Wolves had around sort of 70% of the ball. Now the coin has flipped, if you like, and has gone the other way, with Newcastle having their own good spell at possession.
Yeah, they say game of two halves. It's been half of two halves, I would say.
Who's going to take the third half, if you like? Here is Jimenez.
Not get bogged down in that.
Here is Saiz to Neves. Gives it back to Cody. Neto. his left foot, gives it back to Willy Bolly there. Crowding them out well here, Newcastle, keeping it very, very tight and disciplined. Not the best ball by Hendrick, but Wilson wasn't fouled. He thought he was. Lewis under pressure from Semedo. That certainly is a foul. And that is a free kick to Newcastle, as Jamal Lewis was clipped by Nelson Semedo. And that's not the first time that Semedo's done that on Jamal Lewis.
I did love the fact you had a slight delay and you said it's been very well disciplined. And the second you said the word disciplined on my screen, it came up with Semedo going straight through his opponent. And, rather obvious free kick conceded by the ex-Benfica man. One of many Portuguese players, of course, in these Wolves side.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, there's Patricio, there's Semedo, there's Neves, Podence, and Neto. Just 5 in the lineup. Of course, they have got a few on the bench, the likes of Silva and João Moutinho. Of course, other players in that squad as well, the likes of Vitinha as well, are not involved today. But, of course, they are heavily involved with Jorge Mendes, the super agent. Of course, he has caused a bit of controversy, but, of course, they haven't found any action based on that. And Neto does well against Fernandez, who was sent tumbling to the ground. He gives it to Jimenez. Neves. Saiz. Touch. Then puts the first touch, sets him down, tries to get around Jacob Murphy, who stands up in front of Saiz there and does well. But that was a real poor touch there by Saiz, because if he was able to get that first touch right, he would have most certainly put that ball into the box there.
Yeah, he's still obviously got little bits to get familiar with playing in this different role for him than he did for predominant last. He's obviously, he's got a versatile player. They're asking a few questions of Jacob Murphy. He's been back in the Newcastle ranks this season. He was out on loan at Sheffield Wednesday last year, and he stood up firm to enable them to win the goal kick.
Yeah, he did very, very well indeed, did Jacob Murphy. He was on loan at Sheffield Wednesday last year. Steve Bruce's previous club before he went to join his boyhood Newcastle United. Here is Dendoncker to Neves, Semedo, into Raul Jimenez. We often do see him drop in those little pockets of space to help link up the play. Here is Kilman, Saiz to Podence. It's away from Hendrick. Now it's with Neves, Cody. Neves gets it back. It's Semedo. Patient build-up here by Wolves as they look to try and get toward the Newcastle goal. Neto can't get around Amaron and has to settle for a throw.
Yeah, he's come back and defended well there, Amaron. He's always willing to help out his defence, the Paraguayan, and even the likes of Wilson up top. But again, he said he hasn't really managed to feed on that. But so in the last 15 minutes or so, Steve Bruce will be happy with the way that Newcastle have tightened up and prevented having any clear openings after they threatened to run right. It was a little bit like the Southampton game earlier. It was so dominant from the start and made their chances tell, and Wolves haven't so far. And whether they'll come to rue that.
If you're just tuning into the game, the one real save of note that has been made for either goalkeeper, as the Carl Darler made a very good save from Daniel Podence, where he struck from distance and forced a very good save out of it. Maybe a chance here, though, for Wolves. Neves to Dendoncker. Willy Bolly on the ball. To Semedo. Back to Willy Bolly again. Manages to get away from Wilson. And then the ball intended for Podence and Jimenez was cut out there by Newcastle. Here is St. Maximin. Fraser in front of him on the overlap. No one around him. Will look to go back to St. Maximin, but good defending there by Wolves as Newcastle get a throw in Wolves' half.
Yeah, a little bit more pressing from Newcastle. They want to get someone like Fraser into the game a little bit more. He's been pretty quiet in these early stages. And, just maintain a little bit more possession. Keep up that 60-odd% what they had earlier on in the half. But they've certainly, from the start they made, which could have been much worse, bar conceding, then they've been all right.
Here is Jacob Murphy. Now up to Ryan Fraser. He then gives it to St. Maximin. Fraser gets it back now with St. Maximin again. Fraser trying to make the run, but he might go it alone. Is Maximan. He does tumble over and he does get a free kick. There were two Wolves players who were trying to nick the ball off him. It looks like Neves is the man who's penalised as he just shoved St Maximan to the ground there. Newcastle got a free kick in an offensive position.
Yeah, a couple of fouls in there. I think it was Neves and also...
It was Neto made the foul.
Between the two of them, managed to bring him down. I think it was a correct decision. And Newcastle wasted the corner. They'll be trying to put this ball into the right area. Some key set pieces can be, particularly in the Premier League, they can send some of the men forward. We said Lascelles' last goal for Newcastle was against Wolves, so see what they can do with this.
Fraser's ball in. Jimenez getting it away. Almiron. Newcastle looking to do something with this. And Maximan to Almiron. Wolves have got a lot of players back in there, but there is a lot of black and white shirts there, so Maximan can't get around Ruben Neves, who stands his ground very, very well. He's been quiet so far as St Maximan from an attacking point of view for Newcastle United. And here's now Saiss as Wolves bring the ball back. But you talked about before that delivery from Fraser how the first delivery, the corner was delivered in, it was quite a poor ball in, and the one by Fraser wasn't much better there either. And set pieces will be very, very key for Newcastle, given they've got Lascelles and they've got Fernandes, two players who are going to score goals with their head in the Premier League.
Yeah, we said we got the players up there. Lascelles just got the one this season in the League Cup against Morecambe, that big win. And we said he's netted against Wolves in the past, but they've made a mess of them, really. They haven't asked any questions of the defence, and another delivery which has gone awry. So although they're enjoying more possession, Newcastle, they're not doing enough with it. They're not giving Wilson anything to cope with, as it looks like Podence has gone down as well.
Yes, Podence is on the floor. I'm not too sure. Well, it was certainly from that challenge. It was a very good challenge by Fabian Schär. It's just on his ankle. It was a lot of impact on that as the Swiss defender won the ball there.
He's had a bit of a shoulder knock, hasn't he, Podence, recently? I was initially worried that maybe he's landed on that, but no, it's certainly further down the body where he's felt the full force of the pain. I think he'll be okay to carry on.
You'd expect him to be used to those sort of challenges now in English football. Daniel Podence, who was bought in January from Olympiacos and has took his time to get going in the Wolves team, but of course now very much is at the forefront of the team under Nuno Espirito Santo.
Yeah, started 4 of the 5
he's got on the clock here, and it is 0-0 here.
Yeah, he started 4 this season of the 5. Obviously, the one he missed, he was out injured. So it shows that Espirito Santo has got a little bit of faith in him going forward for Wolves. As I said in the build-up, really, they just can't be too reliant on Jimenez for goals. They need to spread it around a little bit more. Perhaps he's one that could chip in.
So Wolves have a throw in with Nelson Semedo. I mean, there's no doubting who's going to be the happier manager of the two so far. Certainly Steve Bruce will be happy with his side, of course. They're looking to go their first 3 away games unbeaten, something they've not done since the 2011-12 season when they were on the periphery of the Champions League. But of course, on the final day, they slipped up and finished in 5th place as Tottenham took that 4th spot. But of course, it didn't matter as Chelsea won the Champions League. So both didn't even get the chance to play in the Champions League. Neves to Willy Bolly with Jimenez. Now, look how far Jimenez has come deep to try and get the ball. Maybe he is kind of a frustrated figure at the moment. He had a lot of the ball and quite a few chances inside the first quarter of an hour of this game, but the second quarter, he's not really seen a lot of chances go to him.
Yeah, obviously we know how prolific he's been. He's already netted 3 of Wolves' 5 goals this season, but as you said, tracking back, desperate to get into possession because he's been pretty well shackled so far from the Newcastle defence. We thought we're lining up to back 3, which I suppose they actually are, but it's more like a back 5 at times.
Here's Saiss, puts the ball in, over hit cross, and goes out of play for a goal kick. Real disappointment there by Saiss and Wolves there, as there was 2 players in there, and one of them was Jimenez, but Podence did brilliantly to give the ball out to Saiss. It was just a shame the cross was disappointing.
Yeah, that's going to add to his frustrations even more. He's just overcooked it a little bit. You'll see which area he was trying to put it in to try and cause a little bit of chaos for the Newcastle backline, but got his angles wrong and it safely drifts behind.
Well, there's Callum Wilson. He's got a very isolated figure up front for Newcastle. He did have one moment in this game where he shot at goal, but it was well blocked by Max Kilman. But he is a player who has had a great start to life as a Newcastle player. 4 goals already, as we've already said. Good challenge there by Jamal Lewis as he gets there ahead of Pedro Neto, who's trying to get around him. The Wolves have got a throw in, which is taken by Semedo, intended for Jimenez. Hendrick gets the foot in to let Wolves have another throw in. That was with Podence. It almost just feel like with Jimenez and Podence, they're all just playing so narrow. You almost see Podence drop into the midfield, and then you almost see him, link up with Jimenez as well in this game. They're very much trying to almost do everything on their own, aren't they, them two, in the attacking sense? And that's got to be something that's going to frustrate Nuno Espirito Santos. It almost just feels like it's just them two trying to do everything for Wolves in an attacking perspective.
Yeah, they're just desperate to come back and claw back any form of possession that pose some sort of attacking threat for Wolves, because after the first 10 minutes, they haven't really shown enough of it, which will frustrate their home boss.
Absolutely will, and hopefully it can change with half-time nearly upon us. 10.5 minutes of it to play, where it's been very nip and tuck. It's almost felt like a chess match at times. Lovely flick there by Jimenez, which was intended for Neto, but snuffed out by the Newcastle defence, which has stayed very resolute and very organised at Molineux, which is a very, very tough place to go and win. Not many teams do come here and get a point, let alone 3 points. Cody looking up for Jimenez. Fernandez getting in there with a vital interception. Here's Semedo. Gets there at Almiron. Here's now Pedro Neto. Checks back on his right foot. Now goes inside on his left foot. Clips it forward over the head of Raul Jimenez. But better play from Wolves. And an excellent idea. Just didn't quite come off there by Pedro Neto.
No, it was a good jinking play. And again, he tried to get the ball into the right area for Jimenez, but too high for him that time, safely into the hands of Cardale. But it's better from Wolves, and with 10 minutes and a half remaining, they'll want to try and make some sort of breakthrough, because they know, as we said at Newcastle, how organised. They've been pretty organised by the first 10 minutes, but we know that they are prone to sort of collapsing. As we know, they conceded 9 this season. 7 of them were across those 2 games at home to Brighton and Manchester United, but they're unbeaten away in 5, stretching back to last season. They'll be keen to extend that, as you mentioned earlier. And the statistic comes up about scoring and conceding each half.
Wolves certainly do score more than they concede in the second half. But here come Newcastle now with Ryan Fraser. Looks to put the ball in. Not a bad delivery for Wilson, but Patricio comes out and deals with the danger. That's probably only the second time he's actually been involved in this game, Rui Patricio. He's been very, very quiet in 36 minutes, but nice link-up play there by Fraser and Wilson. Just a disappointing ball, just too straight there for the goalkeeper to deal with. But when Fraser seems to go out wide, Newcastle do seem to sort of step it up just that little bit more, it seems.
Yeah, the crosses in general so far, including set pieces, just haven't been up to standard, really. It's been too easy for the goalkeeper, or they've drifted behind. So it's something I think both managers will try and make the point to when they get their teams in for this half-time interval, because that's why there's been pretty much a lack of goal threat, really. There's only been one save from Cardano throughout.
Neves, that's a lovely ball through to Neto. He's going to get on the end of it. He decided against shooting, crosses it back for Jimenez. Vital header there by Cher. Looked like for a moment it was a real opportunity for Wolves to go in front, but Newcastle did well enough to deal with the danger. And in particular, Fabian Cher, who got in there, made a vital header. It might have looked like Neto was going to shoot it first, but decided to put the ball in towards Jimenez. But they have it now in the final 20 yards of the Newcastle half. And Almiron wins it off Jimenez. He's got Wilson and St. Maximan up in support. He gives it to St. Maximan here, Almiron. And he tries to find Wilson at the back post, but he overcooks it. And it goes out of play for a goal kick. But that was a lovely ball through to Neto. He just couldn't quite pick out a orange shirt in that Newcastle box, could he?
No, but on the other end side as well, when Newcastle did manage to break, the three centre backs stayed so narrow you could almost throw a handkerchief over them. And Newcastle didn't really seem to try and stretch them. So Maximan didn't go out wide far enough. Then when he did, he put in an absolutely woeful delivery. It's just a point I've been making it balls into the box. Hadn't been good enough. You can't work with anything like that. They should have just tried to spread them out a little bit more and cause more danger because the three centre backs, yeah, they must have been within like 2 yards of one another just to prevent a clear shot on goal. And no one made that sort of overlapping killer run, and that's why the attack was again wasted.
Here is Pedence to Ruben Neves. We know how good his quality is in this Wolves team and his playmaking abilities. Bolly, Semedo, trying to get away from Jamal Lewis. He gives it to Neves. Here's Neto. Semedo. Neto again. Nice little one-touch passing by Wolves. Here's Saiz. Now to Pedence. Oh, does brilliantly to get away from Murphy. Crosses in. Looking for Jimenez. And it's Jamal Lascelles who gets a real important glancing header away. But Wolves edging closer to getting a chance on goal at Carl Darlow there in the Newcastle goal. And they're getting, as I said, ever closer. Lovely play by Pedence away from Murphy, but he defends that brilliantly. Really good challenge there. But it looked like he might have found him, but he gives it straight away to Ruben Neves. Thought about the shot, went against the idea, gives it to Neto instead. Cuts in on his left and gives it to Willy Bolly. Now, then Donker, Neto again. Bolly, Jimenez, Semedo, lovely ball. Neto, Jimenez. Neto gets it again, and then Almiron slides in, and it was a rather rash challenge by the Paraguayan, and it looks like he's going to find himself in Lee Mason's book. Yes, he is. The first booking of the game is a Newcastle one, in particular for Miguel Almiron, and that was a really poor challenge, which he doesn't really need to make there.
Yeah, first yellow of the season for Almiron, but you could see something like that coming. I think Newcastle had just got frustrated with that little spell of play Wolves had. It was such good footwork, largely for Dents, and almost a bit of a reducer challenge from Almiron. Didn't really need to make it, and that's a dangerous free kick. And let's see if Wolves can actually make something of this and put to bed some of the poor deliveries that have come in so far this game.
Well, it's Wolves' first free kick in 40 minutes, which has just shown how disciplined Newcastle have been. It's Neto who's going to take it. He won the free kick. How good will this delivery be? In it goes. Looked for Jimenez, but he was rather off balance and it went right over his head. Wilson now to Almiron. Newcastle slow the play down, but he looks diagonally for St. Maximan. He takes under control beautifully. Jamal Lewis sprinting up in support, and St. Maximan might go it alone. Decides to shoot. It's deflected, and Patricio makes the save. With a deflection on a shot, it can always change trajectory and always can go a different way to what the keeper dives to. But luckily for Patricio, it's able to just sort of stay in the same position. He's able to make a good commanding save there, but a lot better from Newcastle United.
Yeah, a lot better from St. Maximan as well. He's got a similar goal against Burnley recently where he sort of cuts inside, a little bit of footwork and shoots them low from distance. Yeah, it took a slight nick off a defender, but a comfortable save for the goalkeeper. But better for Newcastle in registering their first shot on target in this game so far.
Well, it was a shot on target, albeit from a deflection, and St. Maximan got that ball. He got away from two Wolves players. He took matters into his own hands. For a second, it did look like he might have just put the ball in potentially into the danger zone for any Newcastle player to attack it. But in that position, when he was in the area that he was, he decided to strike at goal and hope that the deflection might have carried on through or something. But Rui Patricio did very well. The ball by Murphy is overhit and it goes straight back to Wolves and Rui Patricio. But we're edging closer to half-time. And it's so far been a half with not a lot to shout about here at Molineux. Here's Saiz to Jimenez. As well to spin Hendrick. And he almost does too many trolls and nearly falls over there, Raul Jimenez. But still manages to play the ball back. Here's Max Kilman. Pedence. Kilman again. Neves to Cody. Bolly. Wilson trying to put him under pressure. Bolly looks up with a direct ball toward Neto. Lascelles has to come across and defends that well as the ball trickles out of play for a Newcastle goal kick.
Yeah, I'd say Wolves have perhaps been easier on the eye so far in these opening 43 minutes, and very neat footwork, and Podence just there showing there on the replay as well. He managed to outfox Jacob Murphy, but Newcastle have been quite workmanlike, have made Wolves have to work hard so far to not create anything other than those early stages. But I think they get the likes of Podence in the game a little bit more, then it could be so different for that man's side.
Well, I think one thing that we can say what Newcastle have done as the half has worn on, the little pockets of space and the big gaps between the defence and the midfield, they've slowly just sort of covered as the half's worn on. So they probably do deserve a little bit of credit in that regard, because the first 15 minutes, Wolves had so much space in and around the 20, 25-yard area of Newcastle's half, didn't they, Mark?
Yeah, I think they'll just be trying to get the front men into play a little bit more. We've seen how dangerous Maximin can be when he gets on it, when he's running at the defenders, give the Wolves back three something to think about. So, yeah, credit for Newcastle, have recovered well from the Sosa, and they got back into the game themselves and see whether either team can try and make a breakthrough for the interval. But at the moment, it looks like we're going to go into the break goalless.
Certainly does look that way. Wolves get a throw in as Semedo's clearance bounces off Jamal Lewis, as he literally could not get out of the way. But Steve Bruce certainly has seen a lot of these games in his time. A manager who's had over 950 matches as a manager, and not many can say that they've managed both Sheffield clubs, both clubs in Birmingham and Sunderland and Newcastle. As much as anything else, he's had a very distinguished managerial career with some success and some not so good success, but he's doing a decent job here at Newcastle, as his team are doing a decent job here in stifling Wolves at the moment here at Molineux. Here is Podence, who's seen a lot of the balls so far for Wolves, not really been able yet to create that pass or that opportunity that's seen Wolves get a goal in this game. Here is Semedo. Jamal Lewis shows him on the inside. 1 minute of stoppage time for either side to find a goal. It's Wolves who are making the roads toward the goal as the half is edging closer to Lee Mason blowing its whistle. Podence having to go all the way back and manages to spin round. Cher did really well there with the ball close to his feet. Does really well just to stay there, and then Maximin manages to make a challenge. It looked like he was going to get away from him and Fabian Cher there, but they did very, very well there. Newcastle in particular, Alan St-Maximin to defend that.
They've worked so hard, haven't they, Newcastle, this half? I think that's been the main thing. Hendrick has played almost just in front of the back three, trying to act as a shield. And although Steve Bruce will want them a little bit better in the ball, he can't fault their efforts off it so far.
Here is Jimenez, Podence, Dendoncker.
He's going for half time.
They're very angry about that, Wolves, because they were in a very good position to create an attack. But Lee Mason's whistle has signalled the end of the first half. Well, Wolves started the game in the best fashion. They forced the only save of the first half from their perspective from Carl Darlow when he denied Daniel Podence from around 20 yards out with a low drive. And then Raul Jimenez has had two snapshots that have been well off target. Callum Wilson went close when Kilman had a shot blocked. And St-Maximin shot from range was deflected on through to Patricio. But it's half-time at Molineux. Wolves 0, Newcastle United 0. So, of course, it is half-time in this game. Mark, what did you make of that first half? Because it was very much a case of very nip and tuck, not a lot given between the two sides. We saw with Wolves, they started the better. The first 15 minutes, they had the majority of the play and the chances and were finding the gaps. And it looked like it was going to be a very hard afternoon for Newcastle's defence. But as you said, right before the end of the first half, Newcastle defended well and very much really had to work hard and do a lot of chasing in the game. So how would you have seen that first half from both point of views?
I think almost the move on the end of the half pretty much epitomised Wolves in a way, because they took so long trying to get the ball into the net, and perhaps they should have tried to be a little bit more creative, a little bit quicker, because they took so long that the halftime whistle went. They were complaining about it, but if it's time, it's time. And I think just a little bit more creativity needed from Wolves. They're getting the balls in the right area. They're getting it out wide. Well, they had it down right with Semedo a lot in that first half an hour or so, and then tried to switch it out to the left as well to get Saiss into the game more. But Newcastle contained them well after the first 10 minutes. A side as dangerous as Wolves are. But as we said about Wolves, they're too reliant on one player in Jimenez. They need to get others into attacking position. They played 5 games this season. They've only scored 5 goals. And it's slightly evident, you would say, because they haven't really created enough to get round this Newcastle back line. From a Newcastle perspective, after the slow start, they've grown into it a bit more. They've worked really hard. They've had a couple of openings on the break, but they need to make more of those as well, trying to spread the ball out wide perhaps and give Wolves back 3 something to work on. Because we said about that counter attack they had, and they just didn't really do anything with it. Nobody peeled off out wide, and overall for both teams as well, the final ball has got to be a lot better. Some of the crossing that's coming from set pieces or from open play is a lot to be desired. But Wolves have been pretty easy on the eye. They know what good creative players they've got. They need to show a little bit more for me in this second half. Whereas Newcastle, if they go into this unbeaten into 5 away, and if they win, it'll make it their best start to a season since their 2011. Actually, when they did that, they won here as well. But whether Steve Bruce would be happy with a point, I'm sure he would be. A place like Molyneux got such a formidable home record, but 0-0 at the break, I'd say, is about right.
The saying "patience is the name of the game" is probably the most evident thing on show, and it's probably never been more truer than watching this game. So, from an attacking point of view, Wolves obviously might have to overplay and just hope that Newcastle slip up and they can find a gap to potentially get a route to goal. Whilst Newcastle, they have to stay patient with their defending and resolute and organisation. Do you think that could work in either way? It's just seeing which side's going to crack from the defensive point of view, especially from a Wolves perspective, because the majority of the game, they did have a lot of the ball. And at times, they were forced to overplay because of how deep Newcastle were, weren't they, in that first half?
It wouldn't surprise me if you saw the likes, we know how quick some like Adama Traore is on the bench, whether he gets introduced sooner rather than later, because they've got the trickery of Podence, who I think has been pretty handy in the first half. We haven't seen enough of Neto and Jimenez. We said like midway through the half how frustrated he looks having to come back to win possession. In fairness to him, he's willing to work hard for his team. It's not all about him, despite his goal tally. So I think that either team might want to show a little bit more adventure in the second half. But you wonder which players of Newcastle can come on and do that, really. They've got a few defensive-minded players on the bench, whether they'll want to go up long to somebody like Andy Carroll. We haven't really seen too much of Callum Wilson, but he hasn't had the service to work off so far.
Well, there's a stat that's just come up here, and it's that Wolves have now failed to score in the first half of 22 of their last 28 Premier League games. And I think based on that first half, that is very, very evident to see. We've seen Newcastle very much play a formation that is trying to match Wolves, stride for stride near enough. Okay, Wolves are playing 3 up front in Podence, Jimenez and Neto. But from the defensive point of view, I think that they've been very, very resolute. And as the half wore on, they covered the space that Newcastle the Wolves were finding. And they've done a very, very good job, haven't they? Something that Steve Bruce will be certainly be smiling about alongside his coaching staff, you'd imagine, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think he'll be praised because of the changes they've been forced into. Of course, they've got no John Joe Shelby, who's missing with a groin injury, and they've made 3 other changes. So it is a slightly new look to this team, and perhaps that is why they got off to such a slow start. Slightly different formation as well. We know it normally goes 4 at the back, and it's been 3 or effectively 5 sometimes. But I think the likes of the Lascelles has looked steady. Shea back into the team. He's had a few injury troubles this season, and they'll be pleased how they've managed to stand up to this dangerous Wolves team. And as we said, I think the first free kick was given away on something like 40 minutes, and that sort of demonstrates really how well disciplined they've been.
Absolutely does. They're just showing here now the Newcastle threat during that first half, and obviously this is the best chance they have with Alan St-Maximin here. He just dances away from 2 players, and certainly Rui Patricio there for a few seconds would have been worried about that shot taking a deflection. But that's another thing. They haven't got Wilson or St-Maximin involved in the game. Obviously, St-Maximin isn't a usual forward. He is a wide player, but he's obviously having to be in this too with Callum Wilson, and he's obviously the Newcastle number 13, Wilson, been very isolated at times. Do you think maybe as the second half will go on, do you think maybe we'll start to see Newcastle take a few more risks, maybe push Almiron up the pitch, maybe get Fraser out wide a little bit more? How do you think Newcastle will play this now? Because it's almost the domino effect, isn't it? It's just almost waiting for the right time to really cause Wolves some major problems.
Yeah, it depends whether they think they've got the capabilities of beating them on the break or something like that. And you mentioned Almiron, you're right. He's been so deep in this first half, almost alongside Hendrick. At times Fraser's had to play as an extra fullback on the right or left-hand side. And it depends. As I said, I can't really see on the bench who Newcastle can bring on to effectively change the game, particularly pacey players. They might have to just stick with what they've got and just try and get these wide ones into areas more, just seeing at the back there how strong the Lascelles has been. And I think that after you've come into this game onto the back of a 4-1 defeat, which Newcastle have got, I think they'll just be delighted to have withstood that early pressure in the first 10 minutes and try and grow in confidence, because they've got capable players out there. And we know what a poacher that Wilson can be in front of goal. If they get him into the game a little bit more, we could easily see the deadlock broken. He said about Rui Patricio how cold he was in the early stages. He's only had one save to really warm him up so far, the Portuguese. And I think that's the obvious messages, stereotypical messages. I think it'll be work the keeper a little bit more, because he hasn't had a lot to do.
When you talk about the attacking options that Newcastle have got, they've got Andy Carroll, as we know, is such a real handful, very physical presence. That could certainly be a different outlook that they look toward, maybe being even more, or being a bit more direct. And they've also got Joe Linton there, record signing a man who's not got the greatest of goal scoring records in his first sort of 14, 15 months as a Newcastle player, but still nonetheless is an attacking option. From a Wolves perspective, of course, as I've said, they've been very, very patient. They've at times probably overplayed. Maybe they've been forced to because of Newcastle's defensive resilience and the hand that they're playing. Do you think maybe Nuno will say to his players, look, stay patient? Or do you think maybe he needs to try and say, look, we need to speed up a little bit more. We need to get Podence in a more attacking position, get him making runs and get him running at the defenders, because it seems at the moment he's not really been able to do that. And obviously, as you said, they've been heavily reliant on Jimenez, not just this game, but throughout the season. Do you think that will be the message that he'll be looking to create, or maybe just keep doing what you're doing because we will eventually find a way through?
It might be a little bit of keep doing what you're doing, because get my words out. The statistic came up at half time how they score a majority of their goals after the break, and they're familiar for going in goalless at half time. So it feels like they've probably got the fitness to change it around. And I said they've got players on the bench like Traore who can come on and do a job. But again, he doesn't scream goals, and neither with the Newcastle perspective. We're saying they could bring on Andy Carroll. He hasn't obviously left Newcastle and come back. He hasn't scored for them for nearly a decade. He hasn't scored a goal for anybody for nearly 2 years. And I know he's had his injury problems. He hasn't come on in the last 2 games. So you're wondering who's going to sort of twitch first. Who, as you said before, it's a bit like a chess match, and who's going to make the first attacking move to try and kill the other team off, because it is a little bit of a stalemate so far in terms of the scoreline, in terms of possession after the early stages. But I think Steve Bruce will be the happier man in the changing room at halftime. He'll just say that they want to make more of these breaks when they get them, because they've had at times 7 or 8 men behind the ball, but they do break quickly. But it's just getting those players into the right area, stretching Wolves a little bit more, and trying to give like Connor Cody a bit more running to do, because how commanding he's been in the last few games. The Wolves defence, that sort of Leeds game last week, we know how lively Leeds have been going forward, but Wolves was so good at the back that they managed to withstand it. 2 clean sheets in a row, of course, so the confidence is going to build, and you want to get players like St. Maximin on the ball a little bit more and get these wicked deliveries in to try and break the deadlock.
Just quickly before I do pass over to you for you to be the main commentator, and obviously we swap the roles.
No, I'm happy to stay as we are, mate. You stay as you are, mate.
Okay, we'll carry on doing as
I've got my glasses on, and the one main criticism I got of Newcastle in the first half is that they wear red numbers on black and white shirts. So telling them apart, even in glasses, not good enough. And I'll allow my fellow Somerset friend to carry on, I think.
From on the Wolves bench, obviously the name that stands out was Adama Traore. As we know, he's very pacey, he's very, very physical. Somebody who is a real headache for defenders. How long does it before we see him on the pitch?
Well,
Would you say Nuno Santo?
The last game against Leeds on Monday, they brought him on 65 minutes. I think it'll be a similar time, often just past the hour, where they'll try and add a little bit more. They brought Pedence on the Monday. Whether they'll really it depends again how the scoreline's going, doesn't it? If it's still stuck at 0-0, whether they'll want to go really adventurous, but looking at the players in midfield, whether they'll want to sacrifice someone like Dendoncker. Semedo hasn't really got into the game after the first 20 minutes or so, where he saw a lot of it, but he's been well marshalled by the Newcastle defence. So I think Traore would be the obvious choice to come on, although again he's shy of goals as well. He hasn't scored for 10 months anywhere. Just got it. Well, sorry, he scored in the Europa League since then, but again that's back in February. He got his first Spain Cup recently, but I know that he's got pace to burn and really give some of the Newcastle fullbacks something to think about, because I think they've both actually been pretty strong so far. They haven't allowed too many crosses to go into the box, and even when they do, like the Lascelles, who's obviously been like to Nottingham Forest before, has managed to deal with it well. So hence why we're still at 0-0. Two good defences so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said before the game, 7 of the 10 matches in the Premier League have been draws, and the last 3 have been 1-1. So at the moment, it's going to be 8 out of 11 Premier League matches where it has been draws. But of course, anything can happen in the second 45 minutes. Nothing really for Lee Mason to make from a refereeing point of view. But of course, as we know, VAR has always seemingly been round the corner making decisions and whatnot in any type of game. So hopefully, and luckily, we haven't been able to see the VAR be introduced as of yet. One person for Newcastle I thought in that first half was interesting was Ryan Fraser, because he's playing in a central position, but he so often was occupying that right-hand side of the pitch. Okay, his deliveries weren't to the standard that he usually is, but Fraser nonetheless is somebody who's been a very interesting figure in that first half. Do you think he is somebody who has the key to be the difference for Newcastle today?
I think they'll be happier to see him go out wide a little bit more. He's meant to be occupying a central position. I'd love to see his touch map in the first half, because I think he's been on both wings. He's been through the middle a little bit. He's a diminutive figure. They want to get him into the game a little bit more, because he has spells. I remember at Bournemouth where he drifts in and out of form a little bit. He went quiet. Obviously, he didn't play in the closing stages of last season after the contract dispute, when it was obvious he was going to move on. But yeah, just get him in a little bit of space more and just put those balls, just put them in a dangerous area. Don't necessarily look for a man. And Callum Wilson's not the biggest of forwards. They haven't got anyone like Andy Carroll up there as yet. But yeah, I think they'll want to get him in the game a little bit more. We know the threat he's been. He scored for Scotland against Czech Republic the other week, and obviously did so well at Bournemouth those 7 years, helping them into the Premier League. And just get players like that and Pedence on screen now as well. I thought really livened up near the end of the first half. One of the more impressive players I'd say on the pitch so far. He had a real bit of excitement about him, real spark.
Well, he is certainly technically very, very good, and one of the better ones that Wolves have technically in this very well-drilled, balanced side that Nuno Espirito Santo has built. I mean, with Ryan Fraser as well, he has had spells where he's played right wing back before in his career. I do remember on a couple of occasions he did play there for Bournemouth, so potentially maybe Steve Bruce might be tempted to swap him and Murphy around and just have the four of Murphy, Hendrick, or Fraser, Hendrick, Almiron, Lewis, and then push Murphy up. But we'll wait and see as the second half is underway, and as the stat comes up, Wolves have had the most wins in the Premier League since 2018, where the game has been 0-0 at half-time, 12 in total. Joined alongside that with Liverpool, so it's very much a Wolves team that do enjoy the second half more than the first, but it's Newcastle who've got the opening of this second half underway, as I mentioned, and first time Wolves will now touch the ball with with the defenders. So maybe it's a different side of the second half to Wolves and Newcastle, maybe even to this game as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know why we were questioning anything. He knows what he's doing. Get into the break at goalless, lads, and we'll do them in the second half. Old school type tactics from such a charismatic manager.
Here is Pedence through the legs of Fraser. Now here's Jimenez. He strikes at goal. Nowhere near Caldaro. Goal and does sail well wide, but he's putting his arm in the air and he is frustrated and only sort of 60 seconds into the second half. That's the first opportunity for Wolves and it's pretty much like the same as it was in the first half.
Yeah, he hasn't found his range yet, has he? Jimenez left his shooting boots at home for the time being, but we know how dangerous he is, how he can come to light in these games. As Traore on screen now, we highlighted during the break, could be the man to try and change things up for Wolves, but yeah, didn't get it anywhere near the target. That's a good initial play again from Podence.
Headed back by Neves to Rui Patricio. Well, still very much the same setup that Newcastle had throughout that first half. Nuno is a manager who's not very often very angry, does very often keep his emotions to himself on the bench. Very much your modern day manager very much doesn't really shout instructions, just carefully observes and then probably does his talking obviously when they go through the analysis of the games, which they so often do vigorously, these clubs with the analysts behind the scenes.
He's quite methodical, isn't he? He comes across very calm. He's obviously a former goalkeeper as well, which is not frequent that they take on the reins of the top job. But obviously he's done a fantastic job with Wolves.
Absolutely has. And with goalkeepers as well, when they are on the pitch, they do often see everything, every little angle. So it isn't a surprise to probably see him as a manager. Was a goalkeeper when Porto won the Champions League in 2004. Even coached Porto before he came to Wolves, and he did last that one season in 2016, 2017. But he, in the 3 years he's had at Wolves, has taken the club to absolute dizzying heights that they probably wouldn't have expected. Cody looking for Semedo. It's not going to have enough on it. Lewis decides to take no chances and heads the ball out for a throw-in. But that's a couple of the times they did that in the first half where they were looking for Semedo, and they've tried it for the first time in the second half. Semedo getting away from Lewis, getting into the box, can't get away from Fernandez. It's cut back here to Neves. He clips it into the back post, but it's cleared away by Murphy. Here is Neves, well defended there by Wilson. He now gives it to Alan St-Maximin, waiting for support. Almiron is the man who he finds, but wasn't the best of touches by Miguel Almiron. And Wolves now have the ball inside their own half and with Max Kilman.
Yeah, better from Wolves. They've just been quicker to get on with it. They don't want a free kick right at the start of the second half. You barely even noticed that one was given. Just stop the ball down, get on with it. Let's make Newcastle think. And again, the final ball let them down a little bit. It was easy for Newcastle to deal with.
Here is Semedo. Jimenez, Semedo again. To Neto. Now with Neves. To Kilman. He gives it to Saiz. Neto. Very much echoing what was happening in the first half where Wolves were patient. Podence trying to put it in. Can't beat Jamal Lascelles, who heads the ball out for a throw.
Lascelles has been solid, hasn't he, so far this afternoon? Stroke this evening, I suppose, with the clocks going back. But yeah, Wolves, they're trying to get Podence into the game a little bit more. I can see why he's trying to tie these Newcastle defenders into knots. But I think Wolves have just got to keep their heads, just stay patient. They will get an opening. I don't think Newcastle could be dismissed for the remaining 40 minutes. If they are, Steve Bruce will be most impressed.
Given away by Saiz. Newcastle now have it with Wilson, who was closed down very, very quickly there by Leander Dendoncker. Here is Podence. The ball at his feet, puts it in low with his left foot, and that's a good opportunity. It was Neto with the strike. He scored in the last home game against Fulham, and he's nearly found the back of the net again against Newcastle, and he wasn't far away from hitting the target.
Yeah, Wilson dispossessed in the build-up. A good play from Wolves in the end. Again, Podence involved, manages to get it, dribble it towards the edge of the penalty area, and left in a little bit of space, Neto. He tried to side foot it quite deliberately, trying to just place it into the back of the net, but he got behind, leant back a little bit, hence why it managed to go over. But you can see by his expression, he knows it was close, and Wolves think their goal is coming.
Well, you did say a few minutes before that you would be amazed that if Newcastle could defend like this for the rest of the second half, and they just allowed a chance within just a few minutes. But certainly won't be the last. You'd expect that Wolves will create in this game. Here is Murphy to Fraser. Gets a corner as his intended cross bounces off Max Kilman. So the first one of the second half for Newcastle. And hopefully a better delivery than what it has been in the first half, where they were pretty woeful.
Yeah, the first goal in any game is key, but particularly because we see how strong Newcastle have been. You believe that if they get it, they're just going to be even more resolute. They've gone short. They've wasted it.
A really poor return ball for Ryan Fraser, who couldn't even get anywhere near that. And that is just the fine margins, isn't it? It's just a short 5-yard ball in front of Ryan Fraser that St Maximin usually would make, but on this occasion has just not made it. And that's going to be really annoying, Steve Bruce. It's just the simple errors just allow Wolves to get possession back like no tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't blame them for trying something a little bit different, but that's pretty basic stuff, and they made a mess of it, really. You said they haven't put enough threat on this Wolves back line at all, and that was a great opportunity to do so, and just completely killed the game by rolling it out. And again, Newcastle have to start from the back again.
Darlow with the kick forward. Saiz winning the header. Heads it to Pedence, who takes under control. Saiz gets it back. Lovely back heel by Pedence. Here is the Moroccan. Plays it to Neves. In the middle with Jimenez. Now he gets it from Dendonka, sorry. He now plays it to Neto. He'll strike, goes for the curler. And doesn't trouble Carl Darlow as Wolves get another shot off target, as well as Neto. He's had 2 chances in a couple of minutes and both not really able to get near Carl Darlow and force him into a save.
No, that was the only thing. The conclusion of the move didn't live up to the build-up. Really nice touches in there, working in the space, trying to make the Newcastle players come out at them a little bit. And again, credit to Newcastle, they've restricted them to a shot from distance, which I'll be more than happy with. I think Wolves already had 3 efforts in the second half, so similar to the first half, but they've come out of blocks quite strongly, but still not to make any of them count. Darlow hasn't had a shot to save since the 5th minute, which tells its own story why it's still at 0-0. But I think both managers will be pretty content with how it started. Perhaps Nuno a little bit happier.
Bricio gives it to Conor Cody, who comes short, converted from a central midfielder to a centre back, which has worked absolutely superbly. Now, of course, a man who was playing for England and scored against Wales during the last international break, Saiz. Goes to Neto, to Pedence. 3 up front of him. Neto and Jimenez have been all involved so far inside the opening 8 minutes of this second half. Semedo to Neves. St Maximin trying to win the ball off Neves. Runs into Jamal Lewis, and Lewis does brilliantly his intended clearance. It was intended to go up the pitch. Has hit Neves and gone out for a Newcastle throw-in.
He's been good, hasn't he, Lewis? I think he's just grateful to be playing in a more resilient team nowadays. He was obviously Norwich last season, who form went off a cliff when they returned from lockdown, and he settled in well into this Newcastle back line. You say about the foundations of Wolves having a strong one, but that's what Newcastle need as well.
Here is Neto on the ball. Under pressure from Cher, goes to Saiz. Tries to play it through with his weaker right foot, but he can't pick out a Wolves player. But they still have it here with Neves. His pass is cut up by St Maximin, but it does roll on through to Willy Bolly. Now it's with Saiz. It is a game of attack v defence at the moment in this second half, which so many managers like to use when having training with their players during the week or in the build-up to a game. Here is Bolly to Semedo. Bolly again. Patient play by Wolves, very much echoing what was going on in the first half. Here is Bolly, Pedence, Bolly again up all the way from the centre-back berth to Neves, Kilman, Neto, Pedence. Crowded out here by the Newcastle defence. Lovely ball through to Pedence. This might be the moment. On his right foot, it's well blocked by Fernandez. He just wriggled free, got it on his right, but it was well blocked by Fernandez. But that's what Daniel Pedence can do. He's got such a low centre of gravity, managed to get into the box, and there's no real challenge from any Newcastle player. And then he saw a shot get blocked, but a lot better by Wolves there.
Yeah, that feels like handball, I would have thought, against that. Fernandez, who lunged in, I'd be disappointed if that was given against me, but after what we've seen this season, you never know whether presumably there's been a check on it and they've decided it isn't one, which I'd agree with. You said like low centre of gravity, yeah, 5'5", but that was all at the end of wonderful build-up play from Wolves. It's patient. There must have been like 20 or so passes. They really stretched Newcastle about it. Would have deserved a goal, didn't get it because, yet again, top defending from the Argentinian.
Here is Semedo. Ruben Neves not quite had the influence on this game that he would have hoped for. Now it's Neves again. Now to Willy Bolly. Newcastle got everybody inside their own half. Now here is Kilman to Saiz. Kilman again. Saiz. Back to Kilman. Newcastle almost reverting to the two banks of 4 or 5 in the defender's case. And now Murphy takes under control, sends it away. Hendrick to Fraser. Wolves get it back just as Newcastle were trying to play out from the back there. But Newcastle can't afford to do that. Just give Wolves possession back and allow them to just try and build the play up towards getting a chance on Darlow's goal. Here is Raul Jimenez around 30 yards out. Lovely ball out to the right with Semedo. He's going to put the ball in while blocked by Jamal Lewis, and Wolves get a throw.
Yeah, the Newcastle midfield haven't held on to the ball for long enough spells, really. So obviously they're missing Shelby, what influence these guys, or their top scorer last season, which shows how lack of goals. I think he scored 8. So that's why the back line have been put under a little bit more pressure. They're just not making the ball stick further up the field.
Going down there was Dendoncker, and Newcastle trying to play out, but Dendoncker gets in front of Lewis's clearance, and Wolves now have it right by the corner flag. Semedo can't get around Hendrick and overruns it, and then Fernandez just lets it roll out of play for a goal kick. But 13 minutes of this second half played, and it's very much like what it was in the first quarter of the first half, where Wolves had all the chances and all the play, and Newcastle were doing all the defending.
Yeah, you wonder when either manager's going to roll the dice to try and shake it up, because as we said, it's a little bit of a stalemate still. Wolves have had more possession, I'd say, in this second half, and had more efforts on goal. But again, the Newcastle defence has been rock solid, and Wilson up there is cutting an isolated, slightly frustrated figure, you would imagine, so far. He needs more service to work on as a Wolves yet again in possession. They want to get this man Pedent on the ball as often as they can.
And they're starting to do that away. But his pass wasn't as good as he was hoping for, as it was cut out by the Newcastle defence.
That was always going to happen, wasn't it?
Commentator's curse, I think is what they call it.
Yeah, I'm off in the calls of it.
Here is now Jamal Lascelles. Wolves retreating back. Now is Fabian Schär. Came into the side today in place of Emil Kraft, who was on the bench, the Swedish right back. Hendrick to Lascelles. Hendrick gets it back with Fernandez. First time Newcastle in this second half have actually had a spell of possession. Now they go inside Wolves' half. Here's Jamal Lewis. Already got a lot of support. So Maximan is the man who he picks out. Lewis gets it back. Almiron, who was on a yellow card, remember, after that lunge on Pedro Neto toward the end of the first half. Jacob Murphy does well to get away from Saiz. He might just have to get something out for a corner. Puts it in. Goes on through to Wilson. He then lays it off to Almiron. He shoots on his left foot, and it's gone off Kilman, and then Patricio is able to gather. There was a few shots for a handball on a Wolves player. It was Wilson who managed to play it to Almiron. He got his shot blocked, and Newcastle nearly found themselves 1 goal up.
Yeah, Murphy shouldn't really have got the ball away in that situation. I wonder whether slight appeals for a back pass as well. Kilman, as he played it back, it didn't look deliberate to me. And no handball. And yeah, I'm not really sure what Kilman's trying to do there. I would imagine he was trying to get his foot through it and play it over his shoulder. He sort of almost tapped it straight back to his goalkeeper. I know he's obviously got quite a good delicate touch of the ball. He's a former futsal player, but I think Patricio really appreciated it. As Newcastle starting to ask a few more questions that Wolves defend.
Well, he certainly made some good cases of a back pass there by Kilman, but it's Newcastle who are making the roads toward the Wolves goal at the moment, and then they gift Wolves a throw in with a poor return back to Fabian Schär, which we'll see Wolves have a throw in inside their defensive 18, and Roman Saiz is going to take it. Adama Traore looks like he's ready to come on. That's going to strike fear in the Newcastle players, seeing this guy trot onto the pitch, a former Middlesbrough player as well. So Newcastle fans will be hoping even more that he doesn't have quite the impact that his current side. Wolves will be hoping that he can have. Here's Neves to Jimenez. Gives it to Pedro Neto. Him and Podence have swapped sides, incidentally. Of course, Neto is playing on the right. Podence was on the left in the first half. Now they have gone either side of the flanks, which is quite interesting to see because a lot of the play in that first half, Mark, was down that right-hand side, which Neto was occupying alongside Semedo.
Yeah, I think both teams needed to try and do something to mix it up a bit.
Here's Semedo trying to take on Almiron, who defends well there, but Semedo still has the ball at his feet. Tries to cross it in, but it's gone on through after Almiron's block. Podence gets away from Jamal Lewis there. He was did very, very well indeed to not lay a challenge in there because Podence more than likely than not would have gone down. But Wolves now have it with Connor Cody. Now it's with Willy Bolly. He now picks out Dendonko, who's starting to make a few more attacking runs as Wolves go in search of the opening goal. Here's Podence. Goes from his right to his left and back onto his right. Then he goes back onto his left, tries to play it out to the left-hand side with Saiz, but it was too short a ball and Jacob Murphy defends it, but does well to keep the ball at his feet there as he had a few Wolves players hunting him down to try and win the ball back. Lewis gets away from Jimenez. Checks back, gives it to Miguel Almiron. Sitting a lot deeper than what he's used to.
The attack broke down for Wolves because they almost had a back seven almost on the edge of the penalty area, and it's very difficult to prize them apart. It's usually a tactic you sort of see when you watch England play a much lesser nation. I don't think Newcastle are a much lesser team than Wolves or anything like that, but it's just sort of anything to keep the game as tight as possible. But I think if Traore comes on, it's going to ask more questions.
Well, he'll certainly look to try and stretch the game, which Wolves haven't really been able to do inside 64 minutes of this encounter so far. And it is quite evident to see why they have only scored 5 goals in the league. But that's a lovely ball by Saiz to Jimenez, or it looked like anyway, and it's just gone beyond the Mexican who was cutting a real frustrated figure up there. And Nuno Espirito Santo's giving instructions to his first sub, Adama Traore, all oiled up as well. And there's also going to be another change with Martial coming on. I'd expect it to be for Roman Saiz, I'd imagine, who is playing as a left wing back, almost been shoehorned in. So with these two changes, are we going to probably see a bit of a higher intensity from Wolves potentially?
Yeah, I think they'll be keen to get Traore on the ball as often as possible. Pace to burn, man, full of confidence at the moment. Of course, won his first cap for Spain recently, and just create something for Jimenez. As you say, he's been so frustrated out there, and sometimes say the service to him hasn't been bad. That crossfield ball wasn't the worst. It looked like whether he missed the flight of the ball or just didn't get it under control. But either team really need to do something to shake this up. As we've seen so many goal frenzies in the Premier League thus far. I think there's been 1-0, which involved Wolves' great rivals, West Bromwich Albion. At the moment, this is petering out a little bit into it. There needs a little bit of magic to liven this one up.
Well, as you said, there has been a lack of 0-0 so far. There was another one yesterday, bringing the total up to 2.
Of course,
Man United with Chelsea. So at the moment, it looks like we're heading for another one, as Wolves and Newcastle still remains goalless. Neto fouled by Jacob Murphy, and it's a Wolves free kick here. Neto once again fouled in quite an offensive position, and a bit of defending work for Newcastle to do from this set piece.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure whether he needed to make the challenge or whether he looked like he left a trailing leg in, a bit of a lazy leg, Murphy, and one for Wolves to send into the mixer with, as you say, Neto over the top of it, and looks like about 8 Newcastle defenders back there.
And it goes, it beats the first man away by Lascelles, who's not missed a thing in the air today. Jimenez couldn't get it away from Almiron, hit by Neves. It took a deflection and safely rolled on through to Carl Darlow. When you got Jimenez around 25 yards out, it does really strike a real bit of fear amongst a defensive team. But they did well to deal with that Newcastle there, as his shot ended up really not causing any problems as first feared. Newcastle on the ball now with Fabian Schär. He looks diagonally for Jamal Lewis, and Semedo tried to take that under control but completely missed it. But he will run all the way back to get a hold of the ball, and Wolves now will have possession at the back with Connor Cody here, as 21 and a half minutes of this second half have been played and it still remains goalless.
Yeah, I think that's it's the second shot on target all game. So it's why we're still deadlocked at 0-0. Maybe the two changes for Wolves could make a change about it. It looks like a free kick going in Newcastle's favour. But again, I think they had about 8 men in the box and then near the penalty spot. And so when the ball comes out, that's why they couldn't make anything of it, as Wolves do make those changes.
So Podence is the man to go off. Rather surprising to see him off more than Neto, but Adama Traore's on, a man who's been linked with Liverpool within the last few months. And Ronan Saiz, as expected, is replaced by Martial, a man who was part of the Lyon side that reached the Champions League semi-finals last year and was picked up for a cool 1.8 million from the French club to join Wolverhampton Wanderers, and kicked up by Fernandes, and then free kick, an offside is given against Callum Wilson. But will these changes work for Nuno Espirito Santo Wolves? Here is Adama Traore involved now. Ball is beyond Dendoncker, and now St Maximin has the ball at his feet for Newcastle United. Here is Miguel Almiron. He'll go back. Wonder when Steve Bruce will be tempted to go to the bench. We have seen, of course, he's got Andy Carroll and Joe Linton on there, as we know. Ball for Wilson, sees him on side. He's well away from goal. He's waiting for black and white shirts to come up in support. Here's St Maximin. There is a good number of Wolves players defending it, and it's shot by Jeff Hendrick. Cannons off a Wolves player, and then Patricio comes out a long way to get the ball up in his hands.
But look, Wilson's picked that up sort of wide of the penalty area. Nobody's made an attacking run into the penalty area. I don't think he had anybody to aim for. And in the end, they were lucky. They nearly managed to win a corner out of it, which would have been a miracle. But I think a little bit more gung-ho, I'd expect, from Newcastle in situations like that. St Maximin was just behind him, and you needed someone along that 6-yard line. You almost needed Callum Wilson to be in two places at once to gobble up that sort of opportunity. But as we said, the substitutions they've just made, Marcel's first involvement to give away a free kick. But I'm a bit surprised that Podence came off. Actually, he came off at a similar time their last game against Leeds. So whether they think there is going to be a little more injection of pace, whether they think he's faded a little bit. Because I think one of the players who would have gone in might have been Neto, and I wouldn't have been too surprised. But they managed to score, I believe, after the substitution against Leeds on Monday. So we'll see whether it works again for them.
Well, of course, on Monday night, they faced the Leeds side, as we know, under Marcelo Bielsa, really do take the game to teams, whereas this is a different kettle of fish. This is a Newcastle side very much on the defensive, sitting back, happy to keep this at 0-0. So Wolves' dynamic has got to change just ever so slightly, and at the moment, they have not been able to come up with an answer that sees them go in front and still sees Newcastle preserving the point that they have at the moment come for. Here is Ruben Neves. Now with a bit of time, where is his pass going to go? He'll go out to the right with Semedo. 20 minutes of the game remaining. Here's Adama Traore. First chance we could potentially see him have a run at the Newcastle defender Jamal Lewis. Almiron doubling up and doing absolutely superbly to not allow Adama Traore any space to go on the outside there. Brilliantly done there by the Paraguayan.
Yeah, he had nowhere to go. Completely down a blind alley there, Traore, and I know they obviously realise he's some sort of threat.
Here's Neves on the ball now. Here's to Pedro Neto. On his left foot, shoots, blocked by Fabian Schär, who did well in field to deal with that. Poked by Neves to Martial. Neves gets it back. Here is Willy Bolly. He now gives it to Semedo. Newcastle sitting so deep. Wolves just hoping for that one player just to make that run. He's going to put that telling ball through. His Traore crowded out again by Jamal Lewis, but gets a corner this time. And if he can't beat his man, he'll be hoping to get something out of it, and that's exactly what he's done. And Newcastle got to do a bit of defending from this set piece here, and they've got to make sure that they stay alive and alert.
Yeah, they've just doubled up on him, haven't they? As soon as he's come on, Almiron's come back and helping the full-back, and in that sense, it was anyways, corner to Wolves.
Here is Neto's going to take it then, right near Carl Darlow as well. Goes right on the penalty spot. Darlow gets a fist to it, but it was only as far as Almiron, who was able to fully clear the ball away. Now it's in well away from the Newcastle goal with Neves. He gets it back from Cody. Now it's with Martial. Neves again. Willy Bolly. I even recollect Newcastle actually having a shot in the second half. I don't know whether you could count Hendricks as a shot or not. Only he'll be able to tell you that. Here is Kilman. Connor Cody. Looking for the diagonal to Traore. It's found him. Tomato. To Connor Cody. But Newcastle doing well, forcing Wolves back here when they want to get the ball toward the attacking players, but there's just no room to do so. So they're having to go back and forth. Lovely flick on by Dendoncker to Jimenez. Here's Traore looking to take on Lewis. Goes on the outside of him, puts it in. Away by Almiron. Good defending by him. Good defending by Fraser, in fact. So Maximan wins a free kick as he was fouled. But that's better from Traore. Looks to just try and get that bit on the outside of a defender. But Jamal Lewis standing firm against him.
Yeah, they're making their intentions clear. They've got it out to the right side so frequently. He put it back in a good area, but fortunately for Newcastle, Fraser doing his defensive duties perfectly back to in the right place at the right time to clear the penalty spot. We said at half time how we'd like to see him be more of a threat going forward, but I think Steve Bruce would be more than happy with that. I mean, we're looking at somewhat of a bogey side, aren't they? Newcastle, we haven't beat them at home in the top flight since November 1977. Haven't beaten them at home in any competition since 2003, and at the moment that wait's going to go on.
Absolutely is. Well, in the meetings last year, they were both one apiece. Here at Molineux in 2019, it was one apiece when Wolves scored a rather controversial late equaliser through Willy Bolly, and then the game in the 18-19 season at St James's Park, Wolves won 2-1 with a late goal from Matt Doherty. So throughout the last four have been one apiece, and it's been pretty clear to see why these games are often so tight. Traore trying to get around Jamal Lewis, and the last ball comes off Traore via hitting the corner flag, and it goes out for a goal kick. And he's now starting to cut a very frustrated figure, Nuno Espirito Santo.
Yeah, I think that ball just clipping the cornerback rather than Newcastle being penned right in their back line. It goes by for a goal kick, and that sums up his frustration that it's gone behind. Good to see Fabrice Muamba in attendance as well.
Yes, it's very nice to see Fabrice Muamba in attendance. Of course, played for Birmingham, not too far away from Wolverhampton. He had a good couple of years there before he went to Bolton Wanderers, where he did end his professional career. Here is Semedo on the ball. Will we get a breakthrough with 15 minutes of this game remaining? Wolves have looked the most threatening in this second half, albeit with just a few moments of promise. And they've been really stifled by this Newcastle defensive machine that has done very, very well over the last year or so under Steve Bruce when they've been called upon, and especially away from home as well, where they've done really well against some of the bigger sides. Here is Neto. Shrugs off Ryan Fraser's attempts to win the ball back. Traore. Will he be successful this time? Almiron once again doubling up. He gets away from the Paraguay, puts the ball in, looking for Dendoncker. Here's Martial. He gives it back, and it's struck by Neto. Appeals for a handball. Lee Mason waves it away. So Maximan running back into danger, and then Fernandez just clearing the ball back to Connor Cody, but Wolves nearly came up with the answer there, but they were just, once again, Newcastle able to do enough to keep it out.
I think it was Lascelles twice he managed to get in the way. He's been an inspiration for Newcastle, and he'll be hoping he can be for the final quarter hour.
Archer with the ball back
And again.
in. Hendrick just about clearing it away. Here's Neto. Jimenez, he might shoot. Rolls on his right foot. He decided to stab it goal. As he shoots this time, he's successful as it goes on through to Carl Darlow, but it's easily dealt with by the Newcastle goalkeeper, and Wolves unable to still find the opening goal that could be the most important one, and it does feel like that one goal is going to be the most important. Here's the handball shout, hit by Neto. No way is that a handball. Really well blocked by Jamal Lascelles. Kept his hands by his side the entire time that happened. And now Wolves have it now with Semedo. Not really showing a lot of urgency, actually, to get forward. Wolves there. Just very happy to just stay patient as they are. Traore. Here is Marchal's shots blocked. Neto with the pass back to Neves. Here's Kilman, who got an assist for Jimenez's winner at Leeds 6 days ago. Here's Neto, good ball in. Goes through everybody. Left by every Newcastle defender as the ball sails out for a throw-in.
When that attack was developing, I think at one point Almiron was their furthest player forward for Newcastle. He's around 40 yards from his own goal. So there's no outlet, even if they manage to get the ball away, no one with real electric pace. But it looks like they're going to try and do something about it these closing stages with a couple of changes.
Sean Longstaff is going to go on, as well as Joe Linton. Ryan Fraser's going to go off as the first change. Joe Linton's going to go on in place of him with 12 minutes of the game left remaining. Their record signing goes on. And, of course, Fraser's game is over. And so Maximan is going to go off as Sean Longstaff comes back on. He missed last week against Manchester United due to tonsillitis, but he's back on now. And there's an extra man in the midfield to help Newcastle out as they try and hold on even more to this 0-0, which would be a good result for them on the road at Molineux.
Yeah, I think he set their intentions out a little bit because always Sir Maximan's faded a little bit in this game. He's one with a bit of excitement up top to try and help support Callum Wilson. And they'll be seeing whether Longstaff, I know his birthday coming up on Thursday, and you can get an early present. He's 23 and he's a Newcastle fan as well. So it'll be a double whammy if he can make some sort of impact on this game. But it's Wolves asking pretty much all the questions in this fight in this last 20 minutes or so.
Here's Neto, who's been probably the most heavily involved player for Wolves in the second half, but it's a heavy ball for Marchal, which goes out for the throw. And what's interesting now, though, is that they have got two out-and-out strikers up front with Joel Linton coming on. He'll partner Callum Wilson, and then with obviously some Maximan going off. They have lost a considerable amount of pace, but this does probably feel like this might be Joel Linton's game. Here's Neto in attack for Wolves now, and it's been pulled back for a free kick. Maybe they're going to look to try and bring Fabio Silva. And, of course, they have got one more sub that they can make Wolves. And they might be looking to bring on the club's record signing and 18-year-old. But Wolves have got a free kick here with 10 and a half minutes of the game to play. It's going to be Neto who's going to take this. And it looks like every Newcastle player is back to defend this.
This has got to be a good delivery. There's been too many poor this evening.
Neto puts it in. It goes beyond the defensive line. Headed away. It's hit by Jimenez, and it's gone into the back of the net. Wolves finally get the breakthrough, and it's Raul Jimenez. Who else? He scored the winner on Monday. 6 days later, he looks like he's going to do it again. Wolves won. Newcastle 0 with 10 minutes to play, and they've been patient, and they've been rewarded here with the Mexican scoring.
Well, I said it needed to be a good ball in. Actually, the initial ball in wasn't the best. It was headed out to Jimenez, waiting on the edge of the box, waiting in the perfect place, and it sits up for him nicely. Look at him. He's in too much room on the edge of the penalty area. He picks his spot, right foot half volley. Darlow's got no chance, diving across to his right. He's got plenty of bodies in the way as well, but he managed to get it through them all. Look at that, on the half volley. Superb technique. I think Darlow, maybe he's got a hand on it to help it in, but look, he's got time. Not properly closed down, and slight hand on it actually. So Darlow might be a little bit disappointed that he wasn't able to parry it behind, but you can see the joy on the Wolves players, and yet again they've come good in the second half against a very sturdy-looking Newcastle side. They've finally been broken.
Well, they are a team for the second half. Wolverhampton Wanderers, you are quite right there. Jimenez scoring his 4th goal in 6 Premier League games. And it's the goal that's going to give them the difference. But you've got to feel maybe that Darlow, if he went with his other hand, he would have saved it. He's almost tried to use the hand behind him to try and keep that out. And he's no doubt helped on his way through. But now they've got to try and change tactics and go in search of an equaliser. Here's Jamal Lewis. Here's Fernandez up from the back. Now it's with Jeff Hendrick. Tries to slide it through to Wilson. Poor ball. And now Wolves will have it with Pedro Neto. Here's Martial. Now on it. He gives it back to Neto. Martial gives it back. Was he fouled there? Referee says no. Now Newcastle have it. Breaking away with it is Almiron. He tries to slide it through to Longstaff. He's got the pace for it. Really good challenge, though, by the Wolves defender. Wolves midfielder, rather, Ruben Neves, and Newcastle get a throw. And with it, Wolves' final change because João Moutinho is about to enter the field of play.
I'm certain they've changed their mind over the substitution or the turning of the goal. And it's ironic that the substitutions for Newcastle haven't paid off within a minute. They fall behind. There's this final involvement for Ruben Neves as well. But yeah, they brought off one of the players you thought could have given them a little bit more in these closing stages, Alan Maximum. They've brought on Joel Linton, who's really failed to deliver in his time at Newcastle so far. And if he manages to do anything in these closing 7 or 8 minutes or so, then he'll become a hero on Tyneside once more. But yeah, definitely Wolves shoring it up, bringing on their oldest Outfield player in João Moutinho, vastly experienced, just what they need.
Yeah, Neves replaced him in the starting 11. Now Moutinho comes on in place for him for the final 7+ minutes or so. But we talked about, you said, Mark, actually during the game that you'd be amazed if Newcastle could really hold out. They've done a fantastic job in really limiting Wolves, but you've got to do it throughout the 90, which is such a hard thing to do. And they did just crack and allow Jimenez to score. Good ball in there by Murphy, well defended by Connor Cody. Newcastle have got a corner, so maybe we're going to see Newcastle take a few more risks and really throw this at Wolves here. It is actually gone out for a throw-in, rather. I do beg your pardon. It's Jacob Murphy's going to take it. He's urging a player to come short. The man who does come short is Sean Longstaff. Here is Murphy. Good defending there by Pedro Neto, and wins a free kick with a little flick from Jacob Murphy there, as he probably didn't need to really make that foul as Wolves were having to defend there.
What a ball in initially from Murphy. And you see, the Wolves defenders haven't had too much to do this afternoon, but that's when you need your concentration levels as high as possible. And Cody, yet again, showing the form which has got him into the England back three, a system that suits him. There's a replay of the goal as well. It's initially headed out. He's got too much time, Jimenez. He wasn't closed down enough. As you said, Darlow, I think, has gone with it with his wrong arm, which has denied him in this case. How impressive he has been in recent games. But yeah, he's flailing a little bit, Darlow, and you can see there how disappointed he is. The man who was a little bit of a doubt going into this game. He saved many points, though. I remember that game at Tottenham, as we recalled earlier, the number of saves he's made. But there, I think he's going to be a little bit disappointed. It's a good strike technically from Jimenez, but I think on another day, Darlow would have got enough behind it, a stronger arm behind it, certainly.
Well, he is playing in the absence of Martin Dubravka, the normal number one. Of course, he's out with a heel bone injury, which is probably going to keep him out for a while, and has since the start of the campaign. And he will be disappointed by that, but hopefully his team can get back in this game that will spare his blushes just that little bit. Here's Hendrick. It's now Wolves' turn to sit deep and hold on to what they've got. 5 minutes remaining. Newcastle need to come up with an equalising goal. They've been unbeaten on the road so far, but that record is going to go away if the result stays like it is. It's Jamal Lewis. Puts the ball in. Deep ball to the back post it was intended for. It's gone on through to Murphy. He puts it in. Bolly heads it behind him. Linton now on the ball. Big Brazilian. Here's Jamal Lewis. Plays the ball with his left foot to Longstaff. Here is Jamal Lascelles. Jacob Murphy. He puts it in toward the back post, looking for Linton. There's a really good header there by Semedo back to Patricio, who will just take the sting out of the game just a little bit as he takes the ball up in his hands and gets the ball back into play as he rolls it to Marchal. Now it's with João Moutinho. 4 minutes to go. Wolves nearly there.
You wonder why Newcastle didn't show this much adventure earlier in the second half, because they were just penning back. They were inviting the pressure on at times, albeit it's a goal almost from a set piece. Obviously now they're going to try and make inroads and try and get consolation. But there's such little time left that you wonder why they didn't show a little bit more earlier on. It was gambling on trying to catch Wolves on the break, perhaps. But I'd say the Wolves substitutions have made more the difference than the Newcastle ones. Complete adverse effect, conceding within 1 minute of bringing those two on. Perhaps that is a little bit uncomfortable in itself, defending things like set pieces, but really it was just a second ball. Steve Bruce, we disappointed him because they managed to get the first header away well, but nobody was picking up Jimenez on the edge of the box, and hence why it ended in the back of the net with someone as lethal as he is. But free kick on the edge, so there's a chance for Newcastle finally, and they need to make one of these set pieces count. It worked for Wolves, can it work for Newcastle?
Cody coming in the foul with a little shove in the back on Callum Wilson. And what an opportunity this presents for Newcastle, because this is one that's going to be one that you'd fancy that they were going to shoot from. All the free kicks they've had in this game have been ones where they've been quite well away from the goal and ones that they've had to put into the box. But this is one now you think is going to test the goalkeeper. And here comes Andy Carroll. He's going to come on for Jamal Lascelles. So 3 strikers on the pitch. 2 big strikers as well in Joel Linton, who came on about 10 minutes before. Now Andy Carroll is on. What a time this would be to end his 2-year goal drought. 3 around it for Newcastle. There's Almiron, Jacob Murphy around this, as well as Fabian Schär. Maybe this favours the left footer as opposed to the right footer in Murphy. Who knows? Or will they fool everyone and put this in towards Carroll and Joel Linton, who are both
got to have a go.
In the back post. 4 in the Wolves' wall. It's Murphy who takes it, goes around the wall and scores. Newcastle have equalised. And it's Jacob Murphy who's got it. He went around the wall. Patricio very slow at his near post to deal with it. And Newcastle have responded and have equalised and maybe might be coming away from Molineux with a point after all.
We might be coming away with another 1-1 draw between these teams. I said just before he took it favours a shot, and you've got to question a little bit the position of the wall, because credit to Murphy, who's managed to get the sufficient bend to get it in. I think, again, the goalkeeper's going to be a little bit disappointed. He hasn't got a strong enough arm around it, but he got the curve just to get it around the left-hand side of the wall, right as we look at it. He's crept inside the near post. Again, Patricio, obviously he's going to be unsighted because of the wall, but to my knowledge, that's Murphy's first goal in the Premier League for nearly 3 years, and what time to get it.
Well, it's his first start under Steve Bruce in the Premier League, and he's got it with a goal as well. But the wall didn't do its job. Patricio, as you said, was sighted by that. He saw Murphy's free kick head toward him late, and as a result, Newcastle have equalised. Are we going to get a third goal? Then Donker, this game has just sparked into life. Here's Marchal, crowded out by 2 Newcastle players. The goal scorer, Murphy, doing his defensive duties. And it's a goal kick. But we talked about Newcastle in the game, and they had to show a little bit more endeavour. They got a stroke of luck with that foul by Cody, and then Murphy's free kick has proved all the answers. And at the moment, they're going to come away with a point and be 3 unbeaten in their first 3 on the road.
It's a fitting goal from Murphy as well. I think he's been excellent this afternoon. As a behind the goal in Newcastle back line, Conor Cody's there disappointing the man with the concession of the free kick, and also the goalkeeper, of course, who would have perhaps thought he could have done better with Patricio. But if Newcastle do steal a point from this game, then I know who's going to be the more disappointing manager after it, obviously with a late intervention too.
Now it's with Joel Linton. Carroll to Jamal Lewis, plays that forward. Wilson looking to get there ahead of Conor Cody, fouls him. Or does he? Yes, he does now pull that back for a free kick. He was just waiting for the ball to stop in play. 3 added minutes for Wolves to find a winner and for Newcastle to hold on. Here is Neto to Kilman. They've got to get the ball forward, Wolves. Moutinho. Kilman will get it back. He now is waiting for the support to come short to him. He gets it from Jimenez, defended well by Newcastle, in particular Jeff Hendrick, and that's a free kick. And that's ideal for Newcastle because it's a chance to just kill some time and to just let the players regroup and just get up the pitch.
I think Steve Bruce might say it's a plan well executed, obviously, and the character in this team as well. They've gone behind on 80 minutes to then still find the time to recover, something you'll be delighted with. Although there were still spells in the second half, they were a little bit under the cosh. But again, Wolves didn't record enough shots on target. Darlow was hardly tested until the goal. And then, what was that, Newcastle's first shot on target the entire game, perhaps? And it's managed to come off for them. And it looks like we're going to be heading for yet another, as I said after the goal, 1-1 draw between these teams, quite remarkably.
Well, if it stays like this, it will be the fourth meeting in a row in the Premier League that this game will be one apiece. And Newcastle had to score late at Tottenham to get a point around 3 weeks ago. Well, they've done it again against Wolves. That means they will be on their way to getting a draw here by scoring late through Jacob Murphy. And with that as well, it'll be back-to-back 1-1 draws and end Wolves' run of 2 straight victories. Sean Longstaff getting penalised by the referee, and Lee Mason says to João Moutinho, you're not taking that free kick quickly, so it allows a chance for Newcastle to get their players back in a defensive manner. Here is Kilman. 40 seconds of the game remaining. Have Wolves got it in them to get a goal? Marchal does brilliantly get away from Murphy, but really well defended by Almiron. Stands up well and gets a free kick. Superb by the Paraguayan. Defensively, he has been absolutely spot on today for Newcastle United and deserves so much credit for the way he's played today and what's been a very different role for him. Yeah,
we said we often associate him with more out the field, but he's done so much good work in front of the back four. There's a lot of the Newcastle midfielders this evening, and they're going to be well worthy of the point, which it looks almost certain now that they're going to get. Their hard work, their endeavour has won them this point.
Well, Darlow will just kick that ball forward. They'll be waiting for that whistle to go Newcastle, and it is going to go now, and it's full time here at Molineux. 1 apiece between these two sides, as it is for the 4th match running in the Premier League. Both goals came within the final 10 minutes. It was Raul Jimenez who scored in the 80th minute with his strike from distance, which was helped in by Carl Darlow, and then a free kick by Jacob Murphy to score his first goal in the Premier League for Newcastle. So a free kick go around the wall and beat Rui Patricio, who helped the ball into the back of the net like Carl Darlow did for Jimenez's goal. So it's full time here at Molineux. Wolves 1, Newcastle 1. And it's a result that Nuno Espirito Santo will be very annoyed about, but one Steve Bruce will be very happy about. Full time, Wolves 1, Newcastle 1.
You can see the smile on the face, can't you, of Murphy coming off after that. His first Premier League goal since January 2018, and he deserved it as well for his performance. I suppose about the most predictable scoreline. Could have said that's Wolves have now only beaten Newcastle once in their last 11 home meetings with them, and 7 of them have ended 1-1. So perhaps before we came on air, we could have called it, but we couldn't have called that finale. It was a game which sort of livened up, obviously, in the last 15 minutes, an entertaining one, and Steve Bruce will be absolutely delighted with a point. The character of his side shone through in those closing minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. They showed real determination. That's 2 away games on the spin where they've had to come up with a late goal to salvage a point. And of course, it means they have the best start away from home since the 2011-2012 season, where, of course, that year they finished 5th. If that's a good omen, we'll have to wait and see. But obviously, just reviewing the game, let's talk about the first goal. It was a free kick from Neto that he delivered in. It was headed away by Jamal Lascelles. We were very critical of Newcastle's response to try and close down Raul Jimenez's shot that Darlow helped on its way through. Do you think that was the biggest problem, or do you think maybe Darlow should have saved it anyway?
Well, yeah, as you said, he shouldn't have really had a shot to be facing. It was headed away, and you always hear managers say about second phase. But you look, I think there was 3 Wolves players waiting near the edge of the penalty area. So somebody needed to go and close it down. To their credit, Newcastle did try and close it down. They had their traditional arms behind their backs, not willing to give any away. And they got in the way of so many shots this afternoon. But at one time, you're going to let someone like Jimenez have a clear shot on goal because his trajectory wasn't the best earlier in the contest, but he certainly got it spot on there. Goalkeeper perhaps slightly unsighted, but yeah, he didn't get a strong enough glove on it to palm it behind. I think he'll be a little bit disappointed, Darlow, that he didn't do enough, but in the end, fortunately, free kick at the other end meant they ended all square.
Yeah, that free kick came from a simple error from Connor Cody. He is usually one of those defenders who never really makes an error, but it does show that he is human. After he goes into the back of Callum Wilson, and you just had that anticipation that you thought, you know what, this could be where Newcastle get the equaliser, and lo and behold, they went and got it with Jacob Murphy scoring. I mean, what do you think is the problem there? You were bemoaning at the fact that the ball wasn't good enough, it didn't cover the near post. I thought Patricio really, should have done better with it. What do you think was the big problem? Or do you just think it was both of them being as bad as each other in that instance?
Well, first of all, to be fair to Murphy, he's placed it so well because obviously the angle he's got, he couldn't see the goal. He had to curl it around and get just the perfect amount of bend so it's going to creep into that near post. The goalkeeper a little bit slow getting across. He must have, when he's seeing the right footer over the top of it as well, there's only going to be two things. He's either going to hit it as hard as he can at the wall, which means it's not really going to go anywhere, or he's going to try and be clever and put it around the other side. And yeah, he didn't anticipate it well enough, I don't think. Rui Patricio, and hence where it ended up in the back of the net. Perhaps, you never know, they could have been a little bit distracted. Maybe they thought he was going to send the cross in. Obviously, they just brought on Andy Carroll, he's been on the pitch for a matter of seconds before that free kick comes in. Maybe they thought they were going to try and float it to the back post, but I called it just before he took it. I was like, he's got to shoot from it. It's the last chance, I think, that Newcastle are going to have, because I couldn't see them creating anything else. They didn't really create anything else from open play. It was clever from Wilson to win it as well. He invited the foul from Connor Cody and went down under slight pressure, but I think the decision was correct. But yeah, I think you stated the goalkeeper as well. He should have got across a lot quicker than that. Although unsighted, I still think the 32-year-old would be a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, so that's how it is. It's finished. Wolves 1, Newcastle 1. Raul Jimenez got the ball rolling, scoring with 10 minutes to go, and his shot from distance was helped on its way in by Carl Darlow. You thought the points were secure, but for the second away game running, Newcastle scored a late equaliser to salvage a draw. Jacob Murphy's free kick, his first goal in the Premier League for the North East side, has seen them come away from Molineux with a point. And for the fourth game running between these two sides in the Premier League, it has finished 1-1. Thank you for being alongside me, Mark. It was a pleasure you being on the co-com today and providing some excellent analysis of the game. So thank you, and goodbye for now. And I really, really appreciate it. So thank you very, very much.
Yeah, even everyone. Thank you very much.
So it's goodbye from Mark, and it's also goodbye from me, of course. Tomorrow we'll be covering the Burnley-Tottenham match on RS Media. And as I said, it's also goodbye from me. Goodbye.